I don't think I would last in jail. I don't know how you're doing it.
Not well.
Just don't want to depend on him, I guess. I think that's everyone's fear.
I miss your eyes. Your nose.
I like yours.
That's crooked. Maybe I can get beat up in here and someone will punch it so hard it fixes itself.
Sheriff's office, anybody inside? Announce your presence, make yourselves known.
I love you, and I miss you.
Stop.
I
love you.
Thursday, July 1st, 2021 wasn't unlike any other in the Halderson household in Windsor, Wisconsin. Living inside the home was 50-year-old Bart Halderson, his wife, 53-year-old Krista, and their youngest son, 23-year-old Chandler. Chandler was a hard-working live-in college student with an exciting life and an extremely bright future. He was pursuing an IT degree at Madison Technical College, was a member of a police scuba diving team, a young employee at an insurance company, and had a job waiting for him at Elon Musk's prestigious company, SpaceX, upon graduating. He was, by all accounts, an overachiever, and his parents couldn't have been more proud. Chandler also liked to cook, and on the evening of the 1st, he'd made a pasta with scampi sauce dinner for his parents. Following dinner, he helped them gather and pack up tools and luggage in preparation for their 4th of July getaway. His parents had informed him over dinner that they were going on a weekend trip up to their family's cabin, 3 hours away in the woods of Langlade County. During the day, Chandler had noticed his father take a bank-wrapped stack of cash out of the safe in the basement. He'd also seen that his parents had taken a handful of bottles from the liquor cabinet. He'd noted both of these things as odd, but didn't think too much of it. After helping them get their belongings together, the three enjoyed some television before they all headed to bed. That would be the last time Chandler would see his parents alive. The next morning, Friday, July 2nd, Chandler's parents took off for the cabin before he awoke. Chandler enjoyed a day of peace and quiet until that afternoon there came a knock at the door. It turned out to be a coworker of Krista's. She hadn't shown up or called out of work that day, which was extremely unusual behavior for her. The colleague had tried contacting her by phone, but to no avail, so he'd come by to make sure she was okay. Chandler told him that his mom and dad had been preparing for a trip up to the family cabin and had left that morning. With everything going on, she'd probably forgotten to call out. Slightly relieved, her coworker left, but kept in touch with Chandler over the weekend to make sure that Krista made it back safe. However, when Krista didn't come to work or call out that Monday or Tuesday, her coworker had a gut feeling that something was wrong and encouraged Chandler to go to the police. When they still hadn't come home by Wednesday, July 7th, Chandler took his advice and filed a missing persons report to the Dane County Sheriff's Office. He advised police that his parents had been driven up to the cabin by a mysterious couple. After leaving the police station, Chandler began desperately reaching out to people by phone and going door to door around his neighborhood, asking everyone if they'd heard from his parents.
Difficult to track them down. And anyone would have like security cameras and stuff like that.
However, no one had seen or heard anything. The next day, July 8th, Chandler's brother Mitchell and his fiancée met police officers at the family cabin to search the premises for Bart and Krista. But instead, they discovered something rather odd.
We probably could get in if you wanted us to. Obviously, there'd be some damage. We'd try to minimize it as best we could. But
Yeah, no, I think that honestly at least makes sense at this point.
Sheriff's office, anybody inside? Announce your presence, make yourselves known.
There were no suitcases or possessions inside the cabin. Surfaces were covered in layers of dust, and it didn't look as if anything had been moved or even touched. It was clear that no one had been inside at any point in the recent past. With nowhere else to turn, police summoned Chandler as well as his girlfriend Kat down to the police station in the hopes of uncovering some more details that would help them locate his missing parents. Kat's demeanor at being taken to the station is very different compared to Chandler's.
Oh my god, you can see me? So I'm not gonna lie, if you hear me burping, I have a very sensitive stomach. Is it true that the back seats are leather just in case people throw up or pee back here? Oh, we're good. Boys are always so monotone, stubborn. Don't want to talk about steel magnolias.
You just call me a suspect.
Oh, we both really like Star Wars.
The following interrogation footage has been analyzed by a qualified team, including a licensed attorney, a licensed clinical psychologist, a former licensed professional counselor, and a licensed professional counselor.
So, Brian Trump, Detective Dane County Sheriff's Office, we spoke yesterday. Yeah, Chandler Halderson. Yep. So, obviously, we're here. We want to talk a little bit about your parents going missing, right, Krista and Bart? Before we get started, just because you're up here, okay, so I'm just going to read you your constitutional rights. Okay, so it's a Dane County issued card that they give us. So I'll just read them to you right off the card, okay?
The detective's decision to read directly from the note card, despite surely having committed the Miranda rights to memory, could be to emphasize to Chandler that being Mirandized is just a formality and nothing he needs to think too hard about. After Chandler has read his Miranda rights, the detectives jump directly into questioning. In missing persons cases especially, it's important that investigators work with a sense of urgency. Each minute that passes makes it less likely that the victims will be found alive. However, not taking the time to develop rapport with someone can lead to their anxiety level remaining high, which would make them more closed off. Taking a few minutes to put someone at ease and try to connect with them can end up saving a lot of time in the long run.
So you reported your parents missing. We got some information from you yesterday. So I guess if you want to start with, let's just go back to last Wednesday. Wednesday. I was with my dad. Yeah, I remember it. It was kind of a bad day. Okay. Why was it a bad day? I tossed the ball, and I smashed the glass. Okay. With the dog's help. That set my dad off, and we tried to clean it up. Okay. I don't know about him, but I got injured. But he was mad. He didn't really talk to me too much that day. By the way, a detective at my house said something's happened, and while we were leaving, people were going inside. Is there a warrant for my house? Can they go in? Officer? Yeah. What are they up to?
I didn't hear that.
What are they up to?
My guess is they want to just ask some more follow-up questions and stuff.
No, they went into the house.
They would go into the house because they
They just went behind it. Officer Haley just walked pretty much into the gate, the gate on the outside. She just kind of walked in. I was wondering if everything's okay, because she said something's happened.
Okay.
And we need to go down.
Alright. I'll find out what that's about.
Well, has anything bad happened?
Not sure.
It's definitely strange that Chandler would suddenly inquire about a warrant. He looks at the detective with a more stern countenance when asking this question, and makes what appears to be direct and sustained eye contact. While sustained eye contact is more of a sign of dishonesty rather than honesty, and looking away periodically can be due to accessing memories, Chandler's almost constant looking away is atypical behavior and suspicious. Just like how his sustained eye contact is a red flag, the awkward, sustained, almost complete lack of eye contact would raise concerns. Here, his eye contact has nothing to do with trying to look open and honest, and everything to do with seeking out any emotions or clues in the officer's face as he responds. For now, they shift their focus back to getting a timeline for what Chandler did on Thursday, July 1st, the last day he'd seen his parents.
It's Thursday morning. I wake up. I kind of just stay in my room on my phone. Help my mom out getting ready. In the morning, she left for work at 7:30.
His hand covers both sides of his face and he rubs his chin. These are typically self-soothing behaviors, which aren't unusual for a situation like this. Most people in Chandler's position would be anxious. The pressure from the rubbing is comforting, and his hand and arm serve as a subconscious barrier between him and the detective he's talking to. Chandler speaks very slowly, even when describing routine activities like helping his mom with chores before work. He appears to be thinking a lot and often stares blankly at the floor, as if in a daze. This is a common symptom of emotional cutoff, which results when a person is under high stress or has experienced a traumatic event. Emotional cutoff is an adaptive response that allows a person to better cope with intense situations without falling apart or having an emotional breakdown. Since Chandler was frequently with his girlfriend Kat since Friday, detectives are interviewing both so they can uncover any inconsistencies between their stories. If their recounts of the past weekend don't match up, the two are going to have a huge problem.
Oh, there's a Pooh Bear? All right, you can play with it if you want to. Don't twist my arm. All right. Oh, it's right over there if you want to. Oh, I can grab it. I want to hit you with the Pooh Bear. Oh, please don't. Thank you.
Just hang out for a bit. Please. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Her response to seeing the stuffed animal, then proceeding to cuddling with it on the couch as if she's lounging around her own home, may be indicators of emotional immaturity. When someone doesn't show an appropriate level of concern during an investigation, detectives can interpret this as a red flag. Kat sits alone in the interrogation room for about 20 minutes, looking as if she's battling fatigue. Detectives finally enter, introduce themselves, and make her a generous offer in the hopes she lets her guard down.
So this is George. He's one of my partners. Anthony, the one that you spoke with me yesterday, he's off today, so you get George.
I don't know if you're hungry, buy you 2 cookies.
Is there chocolate?
One has chocolate, one doesn't.
I wish it's chocolate. Are you really? If I eat it, I'll just project all vomit. Oh, please don't. There's a too emotional also vomit. So.
I know one sprinkles, but you know what? I can put them here if you want it. You want it? That one has chocolate.
This one?
This one.
Oh. I was like...
You threw that one out.
Kat seems to be in a much softer interrogation room than Chandler. Soft interrogation rooms come from a trauma-informed perspective. When family members, children, or victims of assault need to be questioned by police, they may feel safer doing so in a space that feels comfortable, especially compared to a bare interrogation room. In a regular interrogation room, detectives want the suspect to rely on them to provide comfort, such as compliments, food, cigarettes, attention, rather than the room itself providing comfort.
So, some of it is going to be repeat. I just want to make sure that I'm really understanding everything. So, again, give me your time. My time Thursday. Thursday I worked. That's when Chandler told me, I think it was Thursday, that his parents were going up to the cabin with some friends. So he was going to be at the house with the dogs by himself all weekend. Went to sleep.
Friday morning, I woke up. They had left with the stuff was all set out. I remembered the cast. Alright, so Friday during the day, I just played video games, kind of. Yeah, then after work, I believe that was the day Kat came over. After whose work? Kat, she has 5 her work. 5 is her work when she was off. I believe she came over. She, I believe she stayed with me on that couch that night.
Woke up, got ready for work, went to work. We planned that I was going to go over there and spend the night. just hang out with him and the dogs.
So you went to East Target? You went from Hilldale to East Target?
To East, to my mom's house, to grab the hydrogen peroxide and the Swiffer because Chandler broke the glass of the fireplace and cut his toe, so we wanted to clean that and then clean up the glass and blood.
You've probably noticed that Kat is eating her cookie extremely slowly. This is significant because if you remember, when the detectives first offered Kat the cookies, she told them that she has a chocolate allergy. She claimed that she'll violently throw up if she eats it. However, between the sprinkle cookie and the chocolate chip cookie, she chose the chocolate one. This may explain why she's holding on to it for so long and taking such tiny bites. She could be trying to avoid the chocolate or ingest only little bits of it at a time. You'll later see throughout the interview that she pauses multiple times, reporting the urge to vomit. Her choice to take the chocolate cookie, though, was unusual and could be a possible indication of attention-seeking behaviors.
So then to Chandler's. And then I was there, and then I left in the morning because he wanted to do chores, and then I know what time around what time I was home. Took a picture. And so on Saturday, I was with my dog at 8:53 a.m. So did you see the fireplace? What did it look like? Like, broken. It was like one pane, I think, on the left side.
And did you see, like, the blood in the glass? Was that all picked up?
It was pretty much all picked up, except, like, a little bit of glass was still there. Honestly, I didn't see, like, a lot of blood, but probably because it was only a cut on his big toe.
Okay.
I see what kind.
And blood was by the fireplace, I assume? The blood was by the fireplace?
I think so. I didn't, like, see it, you know?
Oh, you didn't see the blood? Oh.
Honestly, I didn't see, like, a lot of blood, but...
It's Sunday. It's the 4th. In the morning, I'm a little worried about my family. I think I called my mom. Oh, throughout I've called, I don't know the times, though. Throughout the weekend, I mean. But I called my mom, I believe, in the morning. There's along those lines, and I get a text from her. It was a text message. It wasn't even an iMessage, so I assumed. She said white leg today. So she sent it that day.
Chandler makes notably little eye contact with either officer throughout his explanation of his weekend. Occasionally breaking eye contact is a typical sign of one's attempt to access memories. But Chandler is mostly staring down and away from detectives, only looking up at them every now and then. Also, the way Chandler backtracks here sounds as if he made a mistake by indicating to detectives that he only contacted his mother on July 4th. He felt the need to clarify his statement, a sign that there's something of possible interest here.
I called Dan that Sunday, asked him what he's up to, if he wants to hang out. I don't like being alone at the house very long. Dan is mom's co-worker / friend? Yeah, he's this guy. He invited me for fireworks in his driveway. No, this is Sunday. So I went to Kat's house to eat, but we ended up not eating there. We went to Cress's house. Kat and I rushed back to my house, let the girls out, and we go back straight to the farm.
The farm is Cress's home and property. It's a large plot of land that features Cress's house, fields of crops and plants, a big barn, and an above-ground swimming pool that Chandler and Kat frequently use. After enjoying a meal at the farm, the couple traveled back to Chandler's house around 7 p.m. They fed his dogs and took them outside, tackled a couple other small chores. Then they made their way to Dan's house to light fireworks and spend the 4th of July holiday together. After a fireworks show that nearly caused a bushfire, the pair decided it was time to call it a night. They went back to Chandler's house and fell asleep together around 10 p.m. Kat tells investigators much of the same thing about her holiday.
When you say you went home, you went to
Mom's.
Your mom's?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Stomach acid.
Kat corroborates Chandler's story. Kat shows detectives a video of Chandler that's timestamped on July 4th.
And then we left around 6:30 because he had to be home before 8 to feed the dogs their dinner. And so we left around 6:30, probably got to like my mom's house.
There's a garbage or a bathroom.
I think I would look really sus if I stand up and run out of here. I'm not trying to get tackled.
I'm not going to tackle you.
You go, you too.
Oh.
You're good. Okay.
After enjoying fireworks at Dan's house, then going back to Chandler's for the night, the two woke up together Monday morning. Kat left for work shortly before 8 a.m. Chandler supposedly spent the morning playing video games and watching TV. He then made a rather spontaneous visit to the farm by himself.
Well, at the end of the day on Monday, I did go for the afternoon. I did go to the farm to talk to Chris and Kat's mom. I told them what's happening with my health because I had the appointment at 2. Did you go to the farm before or after? Because I told them what happened to me, and I told them the legs are probably going to be permanent, and the headaches should be fixed after the hemorrhage is cleared a little bit.
Chandler is speaking like someone who's trying to jog their memory. He must know that the interrogation isn't some sort of memory test, but he seems keen on recalling every detail, perhaps hoping that providing such detail will mean that he won't be considered a suspect. An innocent person would reasonably want to cough up as much information as possible. However, focusing on details could also be Chandler's way of diffusing any stress or anxiety he's feeling.
Where are we? Sunday. So you were swimming, having a breakdown. What were you having a breakdown about? You ever have your legs stressed? Yeah, no, I haven't. I don't even know if they're done getting like as bad as they can be yet. So yeah, that's not fun. And I think you were telling me last night it's a symptom of a concussion, right? So that's not it. It's a symptom of nerve damage from the hit to my spine. So it's permanent. Okay, I understand that now better. Yeah, I go to dinner at Kat's house on the east side. Okay. What time do you think that was? It's got to be 7:30. I left the farm. I think we just eat and cuddle a little bit. Huh? When I go home.
So
I'm doing good, so I'll let you keep going.
I really try to remember things. And then Sunday, woke up, got ready.
Sunday or Monday?
Monday, sorry. Left around 7:40 because I took a picture at 7:33 of us. Then I went to work. I don't know if you want to see a picture of me at my job because I took a picture in the hazardous section. In the hazardous medication.
So far, Kat comes across as open and forthcoming with detectives. She answers all of their questions in detail and offers up photos and timestamps readily and frequently without being asked. On the other hand, this does all seem a tad convenient. This behavior seems unusual, but may indicate her willingness to be cooperative.
From there, I went to my mom's house because Chandler went to the farm because my mom's fiance lets him walk in the pool because that's one of the things we did Sunday because it helped stretch out his legs, make him feel better because I also helped stretch his legs on Friday because he has some tired numbness, that's the word, in them from his fall he had a couple weeks back.
From there, Kat's account of Monday night mimics Chandler's. They met up at Kat's mom's house sometime around 8 p.m., ate dinner, and watched TV together. Then Chandler left, and they spent the night in their respective homes. We pick our tale back up on Tuesday morning.
Dan is worried about my mom on Tuesday, I think.
Did he call?
I said no word from, I don't know if he called or texted. I think he just contacted. That's what I can think of.
Reached out.
Yeah, he reached out. Then I'm like, oh, it's Tuesday morning. They should be here. No worry. I think I called my mom that day.
So from the time they left, did you talk to them at all when they were? I got a text. You got the one text, and that you mentioned earlier. Didn't like it, right? Yeah. That was it. Nothing else.
Yeah. So that's fishy to me, even the text, because I realized Memorial Day is when the White Lake Parade is.
Oh, sure.
There's no 4th of July. Maybe there's cheap drinks, but there's no parade at White Lake on the 4th. Then I started trying to get the glass. So I got a little lazy on the glass. I just kind of had chairs in front of it. My blood was kind of on the floor, so I got the Swiffer I borrowed from Kat. I Swiffered the floor, and then I got a little bit in the kitchen. And then everywhere kind of I walked, pretty much. The bathroom, the kitchen, and then I couldn't get the carpet, so I still stained that up real crappy.
While it's possible that the bloody toe and the explanation behind it are all true, traces of blood at a crime scene are always a red flag to law enforcement. They'll likely be checking out these stains in order to gauge whether they really might have come from a cut, or if they were clearly caused by something else. One must wonder if Chandler has ever heard of a Band-Aid.
I just tried to stop all the bleeding, but it wouldn't stop. So
that blood was all coming from your left foot.
Yeah, left foot hole.
Left foot hole.
Yeah.
I mean, are we talking massive amounts of blood, or are we talking, a little bit, like describe?
It started as drops until I got to the bathroom. And then I got back to go grab my sock and some of the paper towel. And I see the glasses in there, so I grab a tweezers and I pull it out. And then it starts squirting out. And I got a little bit of the rock. It wasn't that bad of the rock. But I think the worst was that floor. It kind of like this lid puddles. Mm-hmm. It wasn't good.
Are we not in the floor down in the basement?
Well, that one, and then I go upstairs to the kitchen, and it's still going, and I'm trying to get my foot in the sink just to slow it down and pinch it maybe.
Chandler continues with a highly detailed account of his every move. He's sticking to his strategy of providing a description of every single step. However, his constricted emotions and facial expressions make it difficult to read whether this is a symptom of anxiety or a genuine attempt to be helpful.
What's work today for only 30 minutes?
Why only 30?
I was crying.
Okay.
I'm an emotional person.
That's what you're crying about.
My boyfriend's parents are missing. I think it's more concerning if I wasn't concerned. I'm a very emotional person. I cry enough for both of us, is what I like to say.
Sure.
It's I hang out with the family often, There's parents, they're important.
As far as the blood on your foot, how did you clean that up? So we were talking, you had blood on Swiffer Wet Jet. Okay, Swiffer Wet Jet. And where did you get that from?
Kat let me borrow it.
Where's it at now?
I returned it to Kat.
Yeah. Did you use anything else?
Hydrogen peroxide for the tiles from the hard floors. Just the big globs needed a little bit.
Hydrogen peroxide. Did that seem to help get rid of the blood?
Well, it hurt my foot. Stuff. But it didn't really help. Okay, it kind of just made a mess. Well, when I had some blood on the basement, I used the peroxide.
Okay. Basement floor and tiles in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, peroxide. There wasn't as much. Like, there were, like, this size pools in the kitchen.
Okay.
I was pinching it pretty dang hard.
And did you clean up at all when it actually happened?
You know, my dad was furious. So he did stuff
to clean it?
Yeah. I don't know what he did. But he sent me to my room upstairs, and he did whatever he did, but it still was on the floor after he was done.
Okay. Did your dad get injured at all when the glass broke? Did he step on any or
He sent me up. But I don't doubt it. If he gets mad, he's not thinking.
So we don't know if your dad got hurt?
No.
Okay.
No. But my best guess is that guy reached in the fireplace and cut his arm or something. I don't know. So, head pain, do you guys have like Tylenol or something? I know you guys can't really offer anything like that, but
Like a headache?
yeah, I've been getting the migraines from all of the hits and stuff.
Most people wouldn't dare to make a joke about their missing loved one being hurt out of fear and concern that they actually could be. Chandler's amusement about his dad getting cut will certainly be noted by detectives as a red flag. To be fair, it's possible that Chandler is just the type of person who uses inappropriate humor to cope with stress or anxiety. However, when it's discovered what lay among the ashes of the Halderson's fireplace, you'll look back on this comment with a bit more speculation.
Then I go to the police station because I ask her, when should I make a thing? I'm sorry. Don't worry, sir.
Wednesday morning, you said you went to the police department?
Yeah, to make a talk to him about my parents. And then I met with 3 sheriffs.
Chandler's show of emotion is sudden and brief. The nature of his display calls into question whether he's trying really hard to keep his composure or whether this short demonstration was merely an affectation. There's also a third theory. Chandler's agitation might not concern his parents' disappearance at all. Chandler was surely trying to say missing persons report, but he couldn't seem to remember what it's called, no matter how hard he tried.
How's Chandler been? Like I said, he's not really, he expresses it in a different way. He's not like the biggest emotional person, but like, I guess like when I look at him, it's different when other people look at him. Like I can tell it's really hard on him. And like, he just sits there and dissociates and like, cases and like, you know, just sits there like, where are my parents, like a shell.
Kat also told police that Chandler was trying to keep himself optimistic and saying things like, well, they're at the cabin. They don't get a lot of reception, so that's why we haven't talked to them. As well as speculating that maybe their phones died and that was why they haven't heard from them.
So his brother is there today. He leaves.
To go to the cabin?
Yeah, what does Chandler want to do? Does he want to stay in Madison? Does he want to go up to the cabin and help his brother? What's he thinking?
I asked him that when I was on the couch. I was like, why don't we go up to the cabin? Because like his fiance and him were going. He's like, well, I can't drive. I'm like, well, I could have drove. He's like, yeah, you could have. He's like, but I don't know if they need me in Madison for questions, which clearly you guys did. And I also need to be with the dogs. So then I think he went to his neighbors to see if they had like any like a Ring camera and if there's like footage that might have caught the car, and they said they already handed it over to the police. When he came back, I was in the backyard playing frisbee with the dogs.
Fancy security system. I was wondering if you were able to capture the road or my house.
The police actually came and downloaded everything they have. But it's actually my sister's house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were here, I think till like 9 o'clock last night and downloaded all the video she's got. So we're hoping that...
Yeah, did it capture anything on...
We don't know. we don't know. They just took a copy of everything, and so we're hoping.
Wide-angle lens.
Yeah, and it's all
Be able to get a color.
Yeah, and it's all HD, and then I think there's one.
Especially in the dark, it looks like it has a little bit of night vision.
Yeah, and there's one on the corner of the garage too.
How was he when he came back from the neighbor's house after checking for the ring?
He was like, I don't know, I guess a little relieved that they had a camera and they already handed it over to the police. Like, he's really concerned about his parents.
He was definitely concerned based on a call he placed to the sheriff's office before his interrogation.
A little confused. I got 2 squads parked right outside my house, and they're not really canvassing, they're just kind of sitting there. Is everything all right?
Yeah, I mean, they're in the area doing canvassing, and they're also probably doing a shift change right now, getting our second shift crew on around 3:30.
Oh, there's 4 now. Something going on that we need to know? Do you know of anything? So, I don't know. It's kind of stressful. Sorry, so there's nothing new going on?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right.
But in addition to his concern was his notable level of apprehension, and the source behind it would soon be uncovered.
Is there any reason to believe Mom or Dad's blood would be somewhere in the house? Have they been injured at all that you're aware of? Well, my dad scratches his psoriasis till he, gushes blood. Okay. Gushing, describe gushing to me. Enough to run down your leg, cover your leg, I suppose, he has it on his knee. So when he does this, it just drips down. I ask him to stop, but he doesn't do it when he's stressed out. Yeah, he just kind of it's his tick. Probably itches. My mom's blood, just from her bloody nose that she gets sometimes when she wakes up. So that's why we've been doing the humidifier and dehumidifiers. Yeah. Probably downstairs you get we have to do multiple of them, but she can't be in the living room too long because that's a dehumidifier. And if she does, her nose gets bad. Not like a regular one, she gets it bad.
We begin to see some variance in Chandler's facial expressions and intonation. He's really dramatizing his description of how his parents' blood could be present in the home. In reality, neither the scratching of the psoriasis nor a nosebleed are enough to produce noticeable pools of blood. He might think he's being helpful and convincing, but he's actually coming off as quite suspicious. The fact that further investigation revealed considerably large traces of blood that had once been on the basement floor inside Chandler's home doesn't help his argument. In fact, it seems as if he might be trying to explain away why there may be a lot of blood found inside his house.
So he has a good relationship with Mom and Dad.
He's introverted and, doesn't want to hang out with his parents. He'd rather video game on his computer.
It's a good relationship. No problems that you know of between the 3 of them?
I mean, he owed them money, but he paid them back. I told you that already. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was let over during the weekend. But other than that, that's, the only time I've really seen a big problem with them, I guess.
So how did that come about? Why was that a big deal? Because I thought yesterday you said that he's owed for rent and Christmas presents and stuff like that. So why was it
those 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Because he was working for American Family at the time. And there was problems with HR and how they weren't paying him. And it was they sent it in the mail, sent it to not his address. So he was please cancel that check. Then he tried getting them to deposit it. And then at that point they owed him a couple $1,000s because they were so far behind. And then I guess the company that they sent money through was this doesn't seem legit. They thought it was a scam. And so his parents were you got to give us that money because we know you have money. Then he paid them. And it was just those 2 weeks that were you have strict.
It seems odd that Chandler's parents were instantly critical and not more understanding of the problems he was having getting paid. This indicates that there were probably pre-existing issues concerning Chandler and making excuses to not repay his debts. Bart and Krista simply could have been drawing the line with Chandler rather than being hard on him. It could also be for this reason that they gave Chandler chores and expected him to cook sometimes.
So for the 2 weeks, was that when he hurt his back when he fell?
Yeah, it pretty much started, like, right after he fell. Because, like, they could just say, Cat, come over. It was a part of, like, the recovery and, like, hey, pay us back. Like, because he fell downstairs, they just had twice bruised his ribs, had to wear, like, a neck brace. They were obviously concerned and didn't want him doing a lot.
Do you know when he fell?
Yes, June 17th. Before 1:42, because that's around the time this picture was taken.
He was just going down the stairs and fell?
He was on the phone with his boss, who was telling him to hurry up to his computer, so he was running down the wooden stairs with socks.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a weird question with him falling. He probably was going on the computer, but any kind of violence in the house? No.
His dad was downstairs at his computer. He was telling me about, like, hearing Chandler fall. He was like, I was on my computer, it didn't sound bad. And then, like, I got up to, like, check after a while, and, like, he was on the floor. And I was like, okay, Mr. Halderson.
Sure.
Yeah.
He hasn't said anything about it afterwards, like, hey, I really, like, I didn't just slip on my socks, I actually...
No, Chandler's clumsy. Okay, it is not the first time he has fallen. He needs, like, a life alert with things. Yeah. I've seen one of his many falls. Just this. He really likes his socks.
Okay. Socks and long sleeves.
Yeah. It's really cute. It's good takeaway.
Chandler supposedly ran down the wooden staircase in his home while wearing socks, causing him to slip and fall down the stairs. He sustained a concussion, bruises to his ribs, and nerve damage resulting from a hit to the upper spine. The concussion alone left him with poor memory recall and trouble processing information quickly, among other lasting symptoms. Because his injuries impacted his cognitive ability, Chandler apparently felt that it would be best to notify his soon-to-be bosses at SpaceX of his accident. As a result, he lost his position at the company. This loss, in combination with the persistent and indefinite discomfort of his injuries, weighed heavily on Chandler, not to mention his parents having gone missing not long after. It certainly sounds like an unfortunate case, and while the circumstances surrounding his termination are disheartening, it seems odd that Chandler would voluntarily give up his dream job, seemingly prematurely. If he really did have his future mapped out and it all hinged on this job, most others wouldn't have given up without a fight. However, Chandler essentially just forfeited his future position.
Hey, about Florida. So that's where SpaceX was. That's where he was supposed to go. What was the plan? Go down there? You too? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what did that mean? Because obviously you're a job here, so did you have a job lined up?
Or we're just going to transfer to, I'm not trying to say FU, but like FU, Florida University, because they also have a pharmacy school down there. So I'm getting Facebook notifications because people are reposting the Dane County Sheriff's like notice about them, and we've just been messaging people, and like people have been noticing, they're like, hey, are you guys okay? And we're just like repost or tell people.
Sure.
Yeah. We're first gonna go down there.
Did you guys have like everything lined up? Like when were you supposed to?
She was supposed to leave the Saturday of the fall. So happened on Thursday, Friday. He's supposed to leave Saturday morning. And then I was going to leave at the end or middle of August because I wanted to be here for my birthday. Oh, it's a big one. 2000, yeah. Gonna get crunk.
The tragic fall ultimately cost him his job and his future among the palm trees. Perhaps this was just a coincidence or even a fateful stroke of bad luck. Or maybe the fall is just a small part of something more convoluted. Detectives would discover the truth soon enough.
Did you guys have like a place that you were gonna, like, did you have everything kind of figured out? Where were you gonna stay?
Just like apartment building in Titusville.
Okay. Did he like already sign the lease and stuff?
I think so.
Before Chandler lost his job, she was supposed to be moving down to Florida with him in early August. It's odd that her big move across the country was just around the corner, and she had absolutely no idea what apartment they were moving to, and no confirmation that the arrangements were actually in place.
And Mitch hasn't been in the cabinet in a while, right? Today? Oh, well, today.
Yeah, I couldn't say he's been there. He didn't go last year.
Okay. Does he kind of do his own thing, or?
Mitch hasn't lived with us, or, like, he's got a family now, a dog, a girlfriend, no kids, but cool. He's kind of, opposite time. You know how it is with brothers.
Yeah.
He's flew the coop.
Got a feeling myself.
Yeah.
Alright.
I've started thinking about that myself, and my parents are trying to figure that out with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal for a young person to receive help and guidance from their parents, but Chandler sounds more like he needs his parents to hold his hand, which is indicative of severe emotional immaturity. Although many young adults may live at home for a time, they should be working towards financial independence. When someone is happy to mooch off of their parents or another person with no long-term goals for themselves, this can be a red flag. In fact, living a parasitic lifestyle can be a sign of psychopathy. Another sign of Chandler's immaturity was that following his parents' disappearance, it was noted that all the couches in the basement were pushed together, and when he was asked why, Chandler said that he had made himself a fort to sleep in.
Randall, you ever heard about that? They got all the background, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I think it's time we start talking about what happened to your parents. Like the truthful version. Okay. So we have like 20 pages of writing. We're going to start with a clean white piece of paper for you to start telling the truth. Okay. Because listen to me.
Confronted with a change in the detective's tactics, Chandler immediately sits up and leans away from the detectives. The detective's choice to cut Chandler off before he could say anything is actually a move taken straight from the Reed technique. In this style of interrogation, the detectives are advised to immediately cut off any attempts to lie, so as not to allow the suspect to entrench themselves in that lie. In this case, detectives knew Chandler's first instinct would be to try to scramble his way out of this and quickly shut him down.
Is he being interviewed too, or is he done?
Honestly, I'm with you, so I don't know. You have my attention. So there you go. There you go.
With all this questioning, Kat must be adding things up and possibly realizing that Chandler may be a suspect. If she isn't concerned by now, she definitely should be.
This is the only chance you're going to have to tell us the truth. Okay. Listen. I can't tell you what we know, but we know you're not telling us the truth. We know your parents are no longer with us. Okay, and we know the reason why.
Chandler appeared taken aback by the detective's statement that his parents were no longer alive. This is less likely shock at finding out that his parents are dead, and more likely the realization that the jig is up. Officers actually do have proof of his involvement in what really happened to Bart and Krista. Unfortunately, the clues that police managed to dig up tell a morbid tale of the happy couple's last moments. Chandler isn't the only one under suspicion. After all, Kat was with him frequently throughout the weekend. If detectives were also able to find proof of Kat's involvement, she might have a similar conversation waiting around the corner for her. One reason the investigators may be suspicious of her is that while Kat's mother Dolce was a trainee at a public safety commission, she was overheard talking on the phone to her daughter. The instructors at the event claimed that they heard Dolce say to Kat, "But you were not home that night." It's unclear exactly which night they were referring to, but the instructors alleged that they may have heard Kat reply something along the lines of, "Just tell them I was home last night." Thinking this was odd, The instructors asked Dolce what was going on, and she repeatedly told them she was home, she was home. It's important to note that it can't be confirmed what was actually said on the phone call. Still, the instructors told the police what they believed they had overheard. Let's check back in on Kat's interview.
We've been at the house during the renovations. So there's a lot going on at the house. What does the smell like in the house?
Dog.
Okay.
Like when they were working on the basement walls, you could like kind of smell the dusty smell. There's a fiery smell on Friday because when he broke the glass thing on the fireplace, like ash was like exposed. Yeah.
Okay.
The pungent smell of fire is an important observation, as it indicates that the fireplace was actually used not long before she was there.
Does Chandler talk about any firearms that he has?
His friend did gift him one.
Okay. What is it?
I don't know what it's called. But other than that, his parents, they have like a safe with other guns. Because he used to be on the shooting team in college.
Okay, you need to tell the truth. Listen. You need to tell the truth about what happened. And just tell us why it happened. Okay? If something happened, if you were defending yourself, or if you just got fed up with stuff, you need to tell us the truth. Okay?
Chandler exhibits a significant amount of anchor point shifting here, indicating that the detective's pressure is starting to make him feel anxious. This is an important cue to the detectives that if they keep pushing, he may get to a point where he will open up and be honest soon.
This is your chance to tell us why. Okay? I'm not BSing you. Okay? So can we do that?
Okay. Lawyer.
I'm sorry.
Say it again, lawyer.
Okay.
Because they're...
You want a lawyer?
Yeah. Okay. So...
Chandler has clearly just invoked his right to counsel. The questioning at this point needs to stop. He seems to have resorted to asking for counsel because he was being confronted with evidence contrary to his statements.
So how did you find out that the parents were not, that they were late? Did he tell you?
Yeah, we text like all the time, or Snapchat all the time, not really text. Both. And I was like, hey, like, have you heard from them? He's like, no, not yet. I'm like, okay, well, has Mitch heard from them? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, you should maybe ask Mitch. He's like, I don't want to make him worry. I'm like, well, even just ask, like, hey, his mom sent you pictures of the cabin or anything. And I'm like, Tuesday, it was like, still haven't heard anything? He was like, yeah, no, I'm going to go to the police tomorrow. Then he went to the police on Wednesday.
You were trying to call them?
Yeah, he tried to call them. Like, he called his mom in front of me at one point and went straight to voicemail.
Do you know what day that was? Just sometime this weekend. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kat tries numerous times to present Chandler in a favorable light. She mentions that it was his idea to call the police and that he tried calling his mom in front of her. Despite the type of questions she's being asked about him, she seems to be standing by his side, even at the point where the detective's questions are getting more intense and implying foul play on Chandler's part. But unbeknownst to her, detectives are already on his tail.
Exactly what happened. Okay, you know what happened. We're not going to tell you what happened. You know what happened. You were there when it happened. We're not BSing you, okay? I wasn't there when it happened. Okay?
We know more than you think we know. Actually, there's people that have told us things. We have evidence. We have proof. We have more to say about that. So your parents never made it to the cabin, and I think you know that. Okay, so you're asking for an attorney. We're not going to ask any more questions.
Instead of stand up and just come over here for me. Get any in your pockets at all. So just a wallet to just put in there. Hey, okay. Just take this. Back up there. Yes.
Despite the interrogation ending, Chandler still had something disturbing to say after he was handcuffed. He told the officer escorting him from the room that, quote, "You don't know the whole story," and that he didn't feel bad about what I did. When the officer asked what he meant by that, he didn't respond.
You don't think he had anything to do with his mom and dad being unheard from?
No. No. All my friends I've talked to, they're like, no, not Chandler, no. Like, and I'd be crazy. Sorry, I sound very monotone right now, but like, just no.
Kat appears to have no doubt of her boyfriend's innocence, but maybe she just doesn't know him as well as she thinks she does. In the weeks following this interview, Chandler's darkest secrets would come to light. Secrets pertaining to more than just his parents' disappearance. But for now, detectives must get to the bottom of what happened to Bart and Krista, and quickly.
And his brother Mitchell, you think?
Mitchell?
Yeah, he's
a leaf in the wind.
okay.
Even if he tried, they could just like push him over and he'd like break it.
Kat immediately furrowed her brow when detectives asked her if she thinks Chandler had some role in his parents' death, indicating stress and discomfort with the question. After all, compare that reaction to her reaction when she was asked about Mitch. Rather than furrowing, her eyebrows raised, which generally indicates surprise. She even seems amused by the suggestion. It's so unbelievable to her. She also keeps repeating no when they suggest Chandler's involvement. It can often be interpreted as a red flag when someone repeats something over and over, as repetition can be a way to build credibility. However, in this case, Kat may be responding to her own inner dialogue. The thoughts that must be running through her head are unfathomable, and it's almost like she's trying to convince herself that there's no way he could be capable of that.
When you get your farm this weekend, were you guys at school the whole time, or was he walking around the property at all?
I mean, we went on walks together, but walking's hard for him.
Sure.
It's not like he could run away and I wouldn't see him. But we were at each other the whole time. On Monday, he said he walked off by himself, but he was going to cry, so.
On Monday, he walked off by himself? Had a little cry?
Yeah, a little cry session.
What was he upset about if Mom had texted him on Sunday saying that...
The job thing still.
Oh, the job thing?
Yeah.
When did he find out about the job? Was that Monday?
Yes. It was right after his appointment, because they, like, called him. HR did.
Okay. So, were you on the phone with Chandler and heard him yelling about being treated like a prisoner at his house?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about that.
When he wasn't allowed to leave.
And that was after the fall, right? When he was recovery/payback 2 weeks for the money that he owes them.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
What day was that?
But he's still talking about being a prisoner? I don't know.
Like recently?
It just sounds familiar.
Is that something that he normally complained about?
Yeah, like, he's only allowed to leave when his parents let him leave. Like, their house, their rules. Like, if they wanted him home, they'd be like, no, you can't go.
Everything about Kat's answer, the long pause before speaking, the glances around the room, and the vague answer are all red flags for signs of anxiety or concern. She seems uncomfortable and reluctant to speak negatively of him. However, she might also be glancing around because it's likely that Kat has many conversations with Chandler, so she's not always going to recall exactly when each conversation took place. Additionally, the fact that she can't remember what day the conversation occurred could be an indication that this sort of situation happens often. In text messages between Chandler and Kat, it's clear that he felt his parents were overbearing. In one, Chandler tells Kat he told his mom, "I won't be your prisoner anymore," and that, quote, she's actually trying to jail me when she knows I can be more comfortable somewhere else. In one instance, Chandler told Kat that she can't come over, and he can't leave the house because he owes his parents $1,200. When Kat offers to Venmo him the money, he says he can't take it because his parents see the transactions. The next day, Chandler tells her that he's still on lockdown, and Kat replies that she doesn't understand why his parents are being weird and selective on when she can see him. In an even more concerning series of messages, Chandler tells Kat that his mom wants him to go to the cabin, but he's going to tell her he has plans with Kat and threatens to end his own life. Kat replies cryptically that he's so close to freedom. Chandler then states that he's, quote, not gonna tell them with you there. You don't have to be there to watch them hit me. Chandler might have conflict with his parents frequently where they forbid him from leaving the home, so Kat is maybe accustomed to Chandler complaining about this.
And is his dad a strict father? You know, a lot of dads are overly strict.
Like, he's strict, but, like, he still makes jokes, laughs with them. Like I said, fishes with them. The prisoner thing, I think he was just being dramatic. Like, so what kid wouldn't call their parent a prisoner if they're, like, not allowed to leave often? Or, like, they want to go do something, their parents are like, no, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's just my perspective. I'm not trying to be like, no. It's like, it just sounds like a normal kid thing to say to me.
Also, Chandler isn't a kid. He's 23 years old. However, even Kat is referring to him as a kid. It's as though she subconsciously recognizes his immaturity. While Kat wouldn't describe the Haldersons as overly strict parents, there's no telling how Chandler must have felt as their son. Based on the information she gave, they definitely seem overbearing and a little more involved in Chandler's life than the average parents would be, given that he is in reality a grown man. It seems like they bossed him around and treated him like a child. As well, Chandler's parents may have been overbearing as a response to their son's personality, his immaturity and inability to face stressors like an adult. He clearly had severe emotional problems, such as a severe lack of assertiveness and poor anger control. Individuals raised in this kind of environment tend to be immature, are less self-motivated and self-reliant, and have trouble bouncing back when things don't go well.
Do you guys think it's Chandler or something? We're just making sure that we're okay, because you're asking a lot of questions about him. But that's what my friends and I were talking about. We're like, okay, he's like the only one who lives with them. So, and like, he's the only one I have a relationship with. Like, I'm not, you know, Caitlin. I can't answer questions about Mitch. Right. But it's still like, because like, the shock I will feel, and like, I think I'll just be so mentally up if like I find out he took that. Like, it just seems not Chandler at all. Yeah.
It sounds like the once confident Kat is starting to bend to the idea that Chandler had something to do with this. She's even beginning to imagine how she would feel if it were the truth. Kat is very animated and expressive. She seems to be using a lot of hand gestures here because being comedic seems to help her when talking about difficult or uncomfortable things. It seems like she falls back on humor to cope with stress or other emotions she might be feeling.
So you don't think there's any way that Chandler's involved in the disappearance?
No, I told Liz that, like, if it's Chandler, I'm going to be severely mentally fucked up after this. Like, I just can't see it being him. Like,
As well, when she states that she doesn't think Chandler did it, her palms are up. Palms up is generally considered a low-confidence body position, meaning that she may be feeling unsure about this statement.
If it was, would you help him?
Fuck no, I'm sorry. Excuse my French. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, no. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't stand blood. Like, blood scares me. Like, dead bodies. Like, I was good at dissections, but, like, that's animals. But, like, killing people, especially, like, Mr. and Mrs. Halderson, I'm sorry. That's, like, different levels of fucked up.
Okay.
Like, I'm sorry that I'm freaking out now, but, like,
Her hand gestures here seem to get shaky. She's almost trying to push the officer's idea away as if she completely rejects the idea and wouldn't want to be associated with it. Also notice that she chuckles a few times. Again, it seems like she uses humor to get herself through stress. But here her distress has superseded her usual jovial and animated responses. She says she's freaking out, and that's definitely true.
So you had nothing to do with their disappearance?
No.
You don't think Chandler did?
No.
You think anybody, Mitchell, you think he would have anything to do with it?
No, I just can't see people wanting to hurt them. Like, that's the thing. Okay. So that's why we're so worried. Like, we don't know who would do this to them.
What would the possibility be for us to take your cell phone and analyze it? We're trying to verify some things that
So you have all the timestamps,
say,
right? So, I mean, you have all the pictures. So we have a guy that could download it while you're here. Like, you wouldn't have to leave it with us.
He can limit what he looks at.
I'm not gonna lie, so we don't care about those.
Okay.
We don't. All we care about is the text messages from you, Chandler, Snapchat history, any social media stuff, and we're really just looking for probably, what would you say, the first until
today.
July 1st until today? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Locations, what she said.
But yeah, if there's any like inappropriate photos, I totally don't care about those.
Can I get a pinky? You can't break pinky promises, but it's only going to be from July 1st.
So
yes,
yeah,
okay.
That's what you want.
I would like a pinky on that.
I can pinky you.
Awesome.
Her hesitancy could possibly be a cover-up for her not wanting detectives to see any incriminating evidence that could be in her phone. On the other hand, personal photos are a very feasible reason to be anxious about another person going through your device. She appears to take time to weigh the pros and cons before she ultimately decides to hand over her phone.
So in cases like this, disappearance cases, things we like to do to people that, especially like the house, Chandler's house, we like to get consensual, what we call DNA, buccal swabs from people. It's not down the throat or up the nose.
You don't want to draw blood or anything fun.
I'm scared of needles so bad.
Literally, you open your mouth.
I rub one cheek, I rub the other, and we're done. Maybe less than 10 seconds. That's your call. Just helps.
Because obviously, your DNA is probably going to be in the house, right? You were showering there.
Yeah.
Sneezing.
You know what I mean?
So see my hair on her hairbrush. Right. Use her hair dryer.
So it's just like, we just gotta say that you are the person that we're collecting.
Fair enough.
I actually have one.
I don't know if I want a sweaty binder one.
Kat is given a sweaty binder buccal swab. All the while, the conversation with detectives drags on. She's not as conversational or energetic as she once was, and her patience seems to be running low. She's very likely experiencing the onset of mental exhaustion, given that this interrogation has gone on for over 3 hours with no sign of wrapping up. Because Kat wasn't under arrest and not charged with any crime, she was entirely free to refuse the request to provide a sample. However, even when officers are fairly certain that they know who committed a crime, they will often perform evidence clearing, where they take samples from people who aren't suspects in order to clear them of the crime and to determine the origin of any unknown samples. This happens for many things like DNA, fingerprints, blood types, and even footprints. As far as her phone is concerned, there is also a right to refuse surrendering a phone to law enforcement. In Kat's case, if she refuses a phone search or a DNA swab, the only recourse investigators would have is to obtain a warrant for both. It's unclear that investigators would have had enough evidence to show probable cause for either warrant. An attorney would advise you to always refuse to give a DNA sample or provide access to your electronic devices. Even if a person isn't a suspect, it's highly likely the sample will end up in the FBI's CODIS database, the Combined DNA Index System. This can later be used to match newly found and unknown DNA samples to known records for a positive match, and gives the police state a greater ability to ensnare both guilty and innocent alike in any possible future investigation. It can also work retroactively, so that once you submit that sample, it may match up to previously obtained unknown samples, leading to additional legal headaches. It's better, whenever possible, to simply remain off the radar. While DNA matches are generally considered to be as perfect a match as you can get, sloppy evidence collection can easily entangle innocent people in rather serious investigations. CODIS hit a milestone in 2021, with 20 million records now in the system. As of April 2021, CODIS was used in about 550,000 investigations, not something anyone would want to be innocently caught up in.
Do we know when Chandler's going to be done?
Yeah, I think they're done.
Yeah.
They, sounds like he's not quite as cooperative as you.
Okay. Any reason why? It's probably worried you guys are going to be like, Chandler did it. Okay. You know? I think that's everyone's fear.
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to be accused of killing their parents. I'm also, I think, just a very understanding person that will look for the best in everything.
But, yeah. Well, right now, because he's not being so cooperative or forthcoming, his parents are missing. It looks like they're going to take him into custody.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what the charges are yet, but right now it's just going to be because of the missing persons investigation and him
lying
to the detectives. Why he's lying, I mean, we're all wondering.
Tonight.
You probably know him best. Why do you think he's not being truthful?
Doesn't want to depend on him, I guess. Can I talk to him before he goes or no?
Mm-mm. I think they've already walked him down. Why?
That's great.
I mean, you've been super cooperative and trying to get your phone back. If it's not going to be done anytime soon, we can get you a ride somewhere, have someone pick you up.
Can I get a ride back to Chandler's? That's where my car is, and I'm supposed to meet his brother there.
That's going to be something else. I'm glad you said that. So they're probably going to want to leave. They're going to leave your car there.
No.
At the house because he was in it all weekend.
No, I'm sorry.
And
I have places to be. That's my car. Like, if I'm being cooperative, why do you have to take my car?
Because Chandler's not, and he was in your car. So there's chance that there's DNA in there that we need to get.
But don't I have to, like, consent to that, or you need, like, a court order or something?
Oh, because it's at his house. They're looking at writing a warrant at the house. So if they write a warrant at the house, your car's in the driveway, they're going to want, because he was in there.
Kat appears pretty fed up at this point, both with the extensive questioning and the detective's demands. Seeing as she still has work and school to get to, she's reasonably devastated about having to hand over her car. It's not easy or fun to feel like you're being punished for being cooperative by having your things confiscated. It's important to note that a search warrant must be specific about the places to be searched and the items to be seized. However, this specificity requirement doesn't have to be as precise as some people think. For example, a warrant may give officers the right to search a house, attached buildings, e.g. garage, and any vehicles on the property. The key issue here would be how vehicles were listed on the warrant. The warrant may actually name her car specifically, or it may be more generic, such as vehicles on the property. If it's sufficiently generic and could be interpreted to include her car, then it's legitimately a subject to search, impound, and process for evidence. Perhaps the thought of having her clothing and the vehicle that transports her to her job makes Kat feel like there are still pieces of her life that are real and reliable. After all, she's likely still registering the fact that the guy she's been dating for 2 years isn't the person she thought he was, and that this major aspect of her life was a lie. She has every right to be mentally and emotionally fatigued, and this fatigue could be what's making her push back against the detectives.
So there's, like, no way I can talk to him at all.
It's downstairs.
Is that where the, like, jail is?
Yeah, the area.
So, what exactly did detectives find that led to Chandler's sudden arrest? The answer isn't easy to stomach. The same afternoon that Chandler was being interrogated, police received groundbreaking information from none other than Kat's mother, Dolce, and her girlfriend, Cress. Dolce told police that she thought Chandler's behavior had been strange lately, and she'd actually begun to believe he was using some kind of narcotic. Oddly, an officer also described Chandler's pupils as looking like pinpoints. But this wasn't the only story she had to tell. On Monday, July 5th, Chandler visited the farm without Kat and asked Cress if he could use her pool, to which Cress consented. Both her and Dolce were present at the farm that day, and not long after Chandler walked away from the house and disappeared towards the pool, the couple resolved to go for a swim as well. The two hopped on Cress's tractor and made their way across the field towards the pool. However, as they rode along, they saw no sign of Chandler. What they did see through the open doors of the large barn was Chandler's car. The car was parked on the opposite side of the barn, near the wooded area of the farm. Once they got closer, they could see that the trunk was open and Chandler wasn't anywhere in sight. After a minute, they simply continued on their way to the pool. A few minutes later, while they were swimming, they both spotted Chandler walking along the edge of the woods near where his car was parked. He walked away from the tree line and directly towards them. Once he got into the pool, the women noticed that he seemed to splash his chest, arms, and face with the water, as if washing himself off. Then, after staring off into space for a few moments, Chandler left suddenly. Cress made a haunting comment to police, stating that she had recently noticed something strange: vultures circling the woods on the property. Police inspected the woods near where Chandler had been seen, and it wasn't long before they made their first gut-churning discovery: a male human torso. The arms and head were completely missing, and the legs were cut off above the knee. Just as disturbing, Chandler had described that his father wore those cheesy dad joke shirts, and the torso was found still wearing a t-shirt with a joke about sarcasm on it. Investigators also found several cutting tools, including scissors, a saw, bolt cutters, and a long blade, discarded in an empty oil drum by the barn. This was enough to charge Chandler with his father's murder. Interestingly, the medical examiner would later note that there were noticeable differences in the marks left by the tools used to dismember the torso, which could possibly indicate that more than one person made the marks. However, his mother, Krista, was still missing. She wouldn't remain missing for long, though. In fact, Kat would be the one to lead police to Krista about a week later.
Anything you want to tell us right away?
When we met yesterday, because I have been keeping up with the media, I haven't been watching any of the trials for my own mental health, and he was catching me up.
Notice here how she's now cuddling with the stuffed animal, clearly in distress and seeking a comfort tool, even though it's an item typically considered childish. It also provides a bit of a barrier between herself and the detectives, who are tearing her world apart as they find out the truth.
When the Wisconsin River was mentioned, we were mulling over it. I was. And I recalled taking a screenshot of him near the Wisconsin River because we share Snapchat locations with each other. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't responding to me, and he always snaps me. Mm-hmm. And so I just have it putting him there at July 3rd at in the morning. Okay. It's from Snapchat. I don't know if you use that, but that's him by the Wisconsin River off of Gulf Road. Okay. And that's the 8:58 in the morning. Sure. And then my phone always tells me what day it is. So it's July 3rd, 8:58 a.m. Okay. And I placed him there 4 minutes before, so 54.
Okay. Have you been to that spot? Do you know?
I don't know if it's that specific spot, but we used to swim on the Wisconsin River. Okay. And it's one of the spots we would just go to. Mm-hmm. And I've only been there maybe 3 times. Okay. But he's gone swimming there a couple times. Okay. Because when you use Snapchat, when you open up the Snap, open up the app, that's when it's going to update your location. Mm-hmm. If you don't open up the app, your location won't update at all. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, where you at? Where you at? You're not responding to me on Snapchat. Mm-hmm. And we ended up calling, and he just said he was in a dead zone. I was like, what are you doing out there? Mm-hmm. I think over the phone I was like, are you swimming in the Wisconsin River after his fall? That's not safe. Mm-hmm. What did he say he was doing? He said he was running errands to get CBD.
Okay.
And, for the pain. Yeah, he said that's where his guy was, like, because they were going to give it to him for free or something.
Okay.
So he could just try it out.
So he said his guy was going to meet him where his location was? Like,
no, he was driving there.
Okay.
So I think it was all over call, like, a couple weeks ago. But I think he was trying to say, like, he was driving back. And,
so he never says he's actually there for a period of time? Where his location is by the...
No, but when you're in a car, it shows you in a little car driving.
Mm-hmm.
So if he was moving, it would have said that.
And he wasn't?
No, his location was just sitting there standing. And that means he's sat there.
Krista's remains were found by the Wisconsin River in the area where Kat pinged Chandler's location on July 3rd. Most disturbing of all was that when the police arrived in the area, they noted that it appeared familiar. During their investigation, they had noticed a photo of Chandler leaning against a distinct-looking elm tree. They soon discovered that same tree in the area, and approximately 100 yards behind the tree Chandler was photographed with were Krista's remains. Not only that, but the text that Chandler got from his mom on Sunday, July 4th was examined. As Chandler points out in his interrogation video, Krista had sent him a text saying that they were fine and that they would be attending the Independence Day parade that day. The date that this text was sent, July 4th, was inconsistent with the fact that this big annual parade had actually taken place the day before, on July 3rd. When police tracked Krista's phone back to where it was when she sent that text, her phone was nowhere near the family cabin or anywhere in Langlade County. In fact, Krista's phone showed itself to be located inside of her house. After this discovery, police later found Krista's phone in the garage, wrapped in tinfoil and stuffed inside of a hidden shoe. All signs pointed to Chandler having been the one to send that text message to himself. He was almost immediately hit with additional charges concerning the murder and dismemberment of his mother. There's no evidence to suggest that Kat was ever involved in or even aware of the murders of Bart and Krista Halderson, and she has since been cleared of all suspicion. Kat was just another victim of Chandler's convoluted web of lies, and she wasn't the only one. Quite frankly, everything Chandler had told everyone around him about his life was a complete lie. Chandler had been attending Madison College, but he had stopped attending classes over a year ago and never told anyone. He'd even pretended to be a Madison College administration member and communicated with his parents, both over email and over the phone. This was all to make it appear to his parents that he was still enrolled. There was never a job waiting for him at SpaceX. He'd never secured an apartment in Florida with plans to move himself and Kat there. He very likely faked the fall or caused the fall on purpose right before he was scheduled to leave for Florida in order to avoid facing that lie. He'd never been on a police scuba diving team, but what he'd certainly done was manage to convince everyone in his life that this was his reality. It's worthy to note that pathological lying and conning behavior such as this can be signs of psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder. It's also a fact that narcissists tend to be quite grandiose and tell stories about themselves that don't fit reality. To a narcissist, the idea of being normal or like others is intolerable. Naturally, these individuals will also act to protect their fantasy lives. However, going to the extreme of committing murder is atypical, but, of course, there are always exceptions. Unbeknownst to the people around him, Chandler's false life started long before this incident. Interviews with ex-associates and former partners of Chandler's revealed that he was a long-time compulsive liar and serial cheater. He'd told a lot of people different stories about where he worked, who he was, and about his relationship status. There's evidence that suggests that he'd had intimate contact with both men and women over the last year, with the latest tryst occurring just 2 months prior to his parents' disappearance. One of the girls that Chandler dated told the police that he claimed his mother once faked having a stroke to prevent him being able to leave the house and grounded him for an entire summer after he came home with a hickey. While she wasn't sure if he was lying about these outlandish claims, she was able to tell police that Chandler seemed to resent his father for not stepping up when his mother was overbearing with him and claimed that he never did anything on his behalf. In another instance, Chandler texted a friend about being caught cheating on a girlfriend, though it's unclear if he's talking about Kat. He told his friend that his girlfriend was going to call the other girl to confront her and find out what happened. Chandler then asks for his friend to answer the call instead and use a voice-changing app to make his voice sound female. Interestingly, there's evidence that Chandler was also caught by his parents using a voice changer to try to talk to them from his fake job. This was just one of the many instances where Chandler was caught in a lie. According to one of Chandler's ex-girlfriends, Dakota, he'd been seeing both her and Kat at the same time. Though he told Dakota that Kat was just a friend, they both confronted him. While Kat forgave him, Dakota did not.
One of my close friends used to be his ex. We all thought he was this awful, horrible person. And then, I finally met him in person, and I was like, oh, we both really like Star Wars.
Still, she had some very interesting things to tell police. Like many others, she attested to Chandler talking about his mother being overbearing and over-involved in his life. Even more noteworthy, though, was that Dakota also said that Chandler claimed he'd been to a doctor and diagnosed as a psychopath, telling her, quote, "Makes sense now, doesn't it?" But Dakota wasn't the only one that Chandler made this claim to as well. One of his friends and ex-roommates, Alexander, described Chandler as a pathological liar, cold-hearted, and emotionally distanced. Not only did Alexander suspect that Chandler stole money from him while they were living together, but that while proclaiming his innocence, Chandler made an eerie comment that he could look for the money in his safe, but also, quote, "Don't judge me for what you find." Alexander never looked in the safe, likely because on one occasion Chandler told him that he thought he might be a sociopath. Most people who knew Chandler had no clue of the reality of his life. That is, until Bart uncovered one of his son's secrets. He'd begun to suspect that his son was lying about his education after noticing several grammatical errors in the emails Chandler said he received from school staff, as well as several other red flags. Some of the red flags included a meeting with someone from Chandler's college being canceled, so someone else named Daniel Spieth called Bart. Bart later told Krista that the person he talked to sounds just like Chaz, the nickname Chandler's parents used for him. Police would later discover that the email accounts of Daniel Spieth had the same birth date as Chandler, and that the sign-in phone number was the same as Chandler's cell phone. Still, Bart didn't know this at the time. He attempted on a few occasions to gently confront Chandler about some of his lies, and even emailed him saying, "Did you email HR to inquire about your paycheck? Unless there's something you are not telling us, they have had ample time to pay you." So he posed as his son, called the school, and asked for a copy of his unofficial transcripts, and was told he wasn't a student there.
Hi, I'm trying to get an appointment scheduled to meet with somebody to maybe just get a copy of the transcript and also a printed copy of a certificate that was earned and other degree verification. Do you have your old account info? Like you used to be Halderson C at Madison College. Now, how far back does that account go that you're looking at? Like when was the first class taken?
18, spring of 2018. So I don't see that you were admitted in any program.
You said they were, it's the IT degrees in there, right?
No, those are just classes. You might have just took the classes but not be in the program.
Was the internship from the spring show up in there?
No.
Okay, thank you for your help.
Bart told Chandler that they'd both be attending a meeting up at his school that was scheduled for July 1st, the same evening that Chandler had supposedly helped his parents pack up their things for their weekend getaway. When it was time to head off to their meeting the evening of the 1st, before he and Bart could walk outside to the car, Chandler killed him. Bart was killed by a gunshot wound to the head. It's fair to assume that after that, he waited for his mother to get home from work and killed her too. It's still unclear exactly how Krista died. Yet even after Chandler's arrest, the case took a strange turn. Given Kat's reaction during her interview, you may be surprised to know that following Chandler being charged, he and Kat stayed in contact. While in jail, Chandler used a jail messenger app to text Kat, and the two also spoke frequently on the phone. Their conversations reveal a different side of Kat than the one we saw during the interrogations. On September 9th, 2021, Chandler texted Kat saying, "Good morning, wifey. Today is court, so I'm sorry if you have to hear about it." Kat responded, "Good morning, hubby. I love you and everything is going to be okay. Just do your hair, wear your glasses, and show people you don't look like a monster like how they're trying to say you are on the news. Remember to relax and don't be too intense." The two made plans to buy an espresso machine and save so they had money for when they both attended school, and shop for new clothes when Chandler got out of jail. Chandler was optimistic that not only would he be out of prison soon, but that he would be able to get a job quickly. He also messaged her saying that, "I got you still, and that's all I need." In calls from prison, Chandler was able to speak with Kat and her mother on the phone.
Are you going to stay there until January?
I don't know about myself. I'm in a mental health pod, so they might put me in general population eventually.
But trying to stay there
Yeah, I will.
is more safe for you, you know?
Yeah.
I think if you go to the population, try to stay away from other people, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is better to say what happened. Like, if you don't say what are you there for, people thinking that you are there for something else, maybe. I don't want you to be hurt.
Well, don't worry about it. I'm all on the TV, so everyone knows I actually belong in jail.
Oh,
and no one's going to be thinking I'm a snitch, so don't worry.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Plus, if you know of Dane County Prison, anywhere that I would be housed, just given what they're thinking of me, like I'm a crazy person, I'm going to have my own room, and I won't really have to worry about other people. I appreciate you worrying about me and caring for me. I know, yeah, the news has made it sound very bad, but just talking to my lawyers and everything, it's much different. The news has putting a very bad spin on everything.
I know.
I hope you know that.
I don't know what happened, and I don't need. Everybody has their own reason. Huh?
I definitely can't talk about the case over the phone.
Right. But I wanted to tell you that everybody has their own things.
In a text, Chandler tells Kat, "It's a lot to have to read what people say about me. Not super fun. But I understand that a lot of people are angry and or sad, and it's super easy to blame everything on me at this point in the case." Kat tells him, "Everyone is pointing fingers, and it's a lot easier to point at you instead of imagining what else could have happened." In another call, Chandler and Kat discuss his next court appearance.
I think they're delaying everything as much as they can, so we don't have time to prepare.
Well, got your glasses, got your colored pencil to highlight important things. I don't think I would last in jail. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, not well. Mentally. Other than that, I seem to be doing actually pretty well.
Well, I'm happy. I was worried you're going to get beat up or something.
No. People stay clear of me.
Fair.
Yeah. I would too. I miss your eyes. Your nose.
I like yours.
That's crooked. Maybe I can get beat up in here and someone will punch it so hard it fixes itself. I love you and I miss you.
Stop. I love you.
Even after Chandler's incarceration, Kat continued to foot the bill for him. In their jail messages, they talked about how Kat had paid Chandler's lawyers. He thanks her and texts back, "Oof, sorry, hun. You'll be well compensated when I'm out." At one point, they discuss maybe selling some of Chandler's drawings that he's created while in prison, and he messages her saying, I'm drawing a bit more than I used to. Maybe you could sell my pictures to someone and make money for your mattress. They're not good pictures, but I'm apparently famous, or rather infamous at this point. I don't know, just an idea that might help you out. You could sell them and who knows, it could get you something nice. Kat responds, LOL, wishing you the best of luck with the love letter. If I sell the photos, I'm just scared people are going to find out I'm the girlfriend, and I really don't want to deal with that right now. One of the reasons for moving was due to a reporter showing up to the house and a not-so-good experience. Chandler answers, You know I can't talk over this, baby. If anything, I'd have lawyers catch you up. And Kat texts back, I know it's not in your best interest to talk about it over the jail app, LOL. The last message we can see exchanged between the two was from Kat on September 30th, 2021, reading, Hey, since you didn't call, I'm going to assume something happened. I hope you're okay and safe and are able to sleep well tonight. I love you a lot. It's unclear why Kat continued communication with Chandler after his arrest. Perhaps she was in denial. After all, it was a huge pill to swallow. The idea that her boyfriend had so barbarically slayed both of his parents was unthinkable. However, before the trial rolled around, Kat experienced a change of heart. She'd accepted that Chandler's life was a complete and utter lie, though the details of how or when exactly this occurred are unknown. Chandler pleaded not guilty in September of 2021. However, he refused to talk to his appointed lawyers about the case or testify at his own trial. His trial began in January, and due to his lack of cooperation and the pile of evidence against him, the case was practically open and shut. Among the evidence gathered was surveillance footage from a Fleet Farm department store that showed Chandler purchasing a tarp. This tarp would also later be found on the farm, rolled up and discarded in a garbage can. Also found on Cress's property was a white plastic grocery bag at the bottom of a recycling bin. Inside the bag, there were several balled-up paper towels, which were covered in a substance that appeared to be old, dried blood. In addition, Chandler was caught on surveillance camera picking up some large bags of ice from a Target store on July 3rd and from Quick Trip on July 1st. Chandler's internet search history also ended up being one of the biggest clues to his involvement. On July 7th, less than a week after his parents went missing, Chandler searched for body found in Wisconsin, woman's body found in Wisconsin, Wisconsin dismembered body found, dead body found in Wisconsin, body found in Milwaukee River 2021, and Bart and Krista. Through the investigation, neighbors also provided some damning evidence. One claimed to have smelled burning wood followed by an odor of barbecued meat in the air on the night of July 1st. Another neighbor provided security camera footage that showed a flickering light emanating from the Halderson home during the very early morning hours of July 2nd, from approximately midnight until about 4:30 a.m. Only one question remains. Where had Chandler stored the bodies while Kat was over for the weekend? It appears we may never know. Further investigation of the Haldersons' home uncovered the presence of more than 200 bone fragments in the fireplace. The use of a blue light exposed traces of blood in front of the fireplace and on the basement floor of the home that had been cleaned, just as Chandler had reported. However, the amount of blood present was way more than anything a cut on the toe, a nosebleed, or scratches could have produced. Then, of course, there's the fact that in the days following their disappearances, Chandler was spotted in both areas where his parents' remains were discovered. The jury would deliberate for only 2 hours, after which they would find Chandler Halderson guilty of the intentional homicide of his parents, Bart and Krista Halderson. He was also found guilty of 2 counts of giving false information regarding a missing person, and 2 counts of mutilating a body. Chandler requested not to be present at his sentencing, but his request was denied, and he was forced to attend. At his sentencing on March 17, 2022, Chandler's defense team pleaded for the possibility of parole, but the judge would state that in order to fulfill his duty of ensuring the safety of the public, he had to hand down a sentence that would guarantee that Chandler would never walk the streets again. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Chandler only had one thing to say at his sentencing. He made a brief statement saying that he planned to appeal the verdict and that if any criminal lawyers were watching and wanted to take on his case, they should reach out to him as soon as possible. And he wasn't kidding. On March 30th, 2023, Chandler submitted a notice of no merit appeal for his conviction. This is exactly what it sounds like, an appeal filed by a lawyer who doesn't believe there's actual reasonable grounds for an appeal. Chandler is currently serving his life sentence at the Dodge Correctional Institute in Waupun, Wisconsin.
The Anatomy of Deception. Introduction. The quiet expanses of the American landscape are often defined by an unspoken social contract, a quiet agreement among neighbors that the unlocked front door, the waving hand across a gravel road, and the shared warmth of a community gathering are the true measures of security. From the snow-dusted peaks of Summit County, Utah, to the sun-drenched vineyards of Paso Robles, California, and from the industrious neighborhoods of Evansville, Indiana, to the quiet, rural expanses of Huron County, Ohio, trust is the foundational currency of daily life. It is the invisible thread that binds families, sustains friendships, and allows individuals to sleep peacefully through the night. Yet, history demonstrates that the most profound deceptions do not always originate from the outside. They do not arrive with the dramatic clamor of a stranger in the dark. Instead, they often take root within the very structures built to protect us, disguised as the grieving widow, the helpful neighbor, the devoted spouse, or the friendly contractor. When these polished facades begin to crack, they reveal a chilling reality that the human capacity for manipulation can be remarkably calculated, driven by the timeless motivators of material wealth, unchecked pride, and the desperate desire to escape the consequences of one's own choices. To understand these narratives is not merely to examine the details of criminal acts, but to observe the systematic, patient efforts of those dedicated to uncovering the truth. Science, technology, and old-fashioned police work serve as the quiet instruments of justice, dismantling elaborate lies through ballistics, digital tracking, and forensic science. Through their persistence, investigators restore balance to communities fractured by betrayal, ensuring that the memory of the victims is honored not by the sensationalism of their deaths, but by the quiet, enduring triumph of the truth. Part 1. The Storybook Widow. Under the bright studio lights of a local television station in northern Utah, a young woman sat before a camera, her posture composed, her eyes carrying a carefully measured expression of sorrow. Her name was Corey Richens. To the thousands of viewers watching the morning broadcast of Good Things Utah, she presented herself as a beacon of maternal strength, a modern woman who had traversed the valley of unspeakable tragedy and emerged with a mission to heal others. She had recently self-published a children's book titled Are You With Me? A gentle narrative designed to help young minds navigate the complex, terrifying landscape of sudden loss. The book, written from the perspective of a child, wondering if his deceased father still observed his milestones, was dedicated to her late husband, Eric Richens. On the screen, Corey spoke with a soft, earnest cadence, explaining how she had searched everywhere for a literary tool to help. Her 3 young sons, aged 10, 9, and 6, processed the sudden departure of their father. Finding nothing, she claimed she had been compelled to write the book herself, translating her family's private agony into a universal balm for grieving hearts. Viewers at home saw a devoted mother powering through her grief. The local hosts offered effusive praise, thanking her for her vulnerability and her willingness to share such a deeply personal journey. To the casual observer, it was a heartwarming story of resilience. But behind the studio cameras, far beneath the polished veneer of authorial success and maternal devotion, a much darker reality was already beginning to unravel. Within 48 hours of her television appearance, a single, anonymous email would land in the station's inbox, written in stark, urgent capital letters. The message contained a chilling accusation that shattered the heartwarming narrative. She killed her husband. To understand the origin of this accusation, one must travel back to a freezing night in Camas, Utah, a little after 3 o'clock in the morning on March 4th, 2022. The silence of the mountain community was broken by a frantic call to 911. Corey Richens was on the line, her voice trembling as she informed the dispatcher that her husband, Eric, was cold to the touch and not breathing. The dispatcher urged her to begin cardiopulmonary resuscitation, counting out the rhythm over the phone. 1, 2, 3, 4. When emergency medical technicians and local sheriff's deputies arrived at the residence, they entered a master bedroom where a life-and-death struggle was already concluding. Eric Richens, 39 years old, highly athletic and beloved by his community, lay on his back on the floor. He had no pulse. His skin was pale. A mechanical resuscitation device was deployed, filling the room with a rhythmic, metallic thumping, but it was clear to the first responders that Eric had been deceased for some time before the call was placed. In the early morning hours, as police body-worn cameras captured the unfolding scene, Corey paced the home, offering a narrative of the evening's events. She explained that they had been celebrating a major financial milestone for her real estate business. To toast the occasion, she had prepared a mixed drink, a Moscow Mule, which they shared in their bedroom. Afterward, she claimed she went to sleep in one of her son's rooms because the child was suffering from night terrors. Upon returning to the master bedroom in the early hours of the morning, she said she touched her husband and found him unresponsive. When questioned about his medical history, Corey and her mother, Lisa Darden, who had rushed to the scene, offered various theories. Perhaps it was a severe reaction to his weekly allergy shots. Perhaps it was an undiagnosed cardiovascular issue, or perhaps an aneurysm. The initial presence of a small amount of blood near his mouth during chest compressions led some on the scene to speculate about a sudden hemorrhage. Corey also mentioned that Eric occasionally took a tetrahydrocannabinol gummy to help him sleep, though she was unsure if he had done so that night. To those who knew Eric Richens, the theory of a natural death or a sudden medical failure seemed entirely incongruous with the man they knew. Eric was an avid outdoorsman, a hunter who had traveled as far as Africa for big game expeditions, and a dedicated partner in a highly successful stonemasonry business, C&E Masonry. He was a robust, energetic father who spent his free time coaching his son's soccer teams and working on his family's cattle ranch in Summit County. He was a man of deep faith, having served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Mexico City. He did not use illicit drugs, and his physical health was excellent. Because of his young age and the unexpected nature of his passing, the county coroner's office was legally required to conduct a forensic autopsy. As the medical examiner began the systematic analysis of Eric's physical remains, the local sheriff's department commenced a routine investigation. It did not take long for the polished facade of the grieving widow to show its first significant fractures. The morning after a family gathering where friends had tried to comfort Corey and her sons, an intense argument erupted at the Richens home. Eric's sister, Amy, arrived at the house to find a locksmith preparing to drill open a large safe containing Eric's personal documents, including his will. The confrontation was immediate and severe. Amy informed Corey in no uncertain terms that she had no right to access the safe or the documents within it. In that moment, a devastating revelation was delivered. Eric had secretly altered his estate planning 2 years prior. In 2020, he had created a private trust, naming his sister Katie as the trustee and executor, and designating his 3 young sons as the sole beneficiaries. The family home had been placed into the trust, and Corey had been largely excluded from the estate. The realization that she had been financially disinherited triggered a physical altercation. Authorities were called to the scene, and Amy reported that Corey had struck her in the face and neck. Corey was subsequently arrested and charged with assault, eventually entering a plea of no contest. This explosive conflict, occurring a mere 2 days after Eric's passing, exposed a deep, bitter divide between the two families. At the funeral, the tension was palpable. The two sides of the family stood in separate areas of the chapel, refusing to speak or acknowledge one another. Observers noted that the ceremony was incredibly uncomfortable, marked by an elaborate, country-style presentation, while Corey appeared distant, already having removed her wedding ring and cleared Eric's clothing from their home within weeks of his death. As civil litigation over the estate commenced, criminal investigators began to look more closely at the financial reality of Corey Richens' life. While she had cultivated an image of a highly successful real estate investor and home flipper, her financial records painted a picture of desperate, mounting ruin. Corey had grown up in a hardworking construction family that moved frequently. She had spent her youth cleaning the sprawling mansions of the wealthy in Park City, Utah, harboring a deep, burning ambition to one day own those very homes. When she established Kay Richens Realty in 2019, she believed she had found her path to unlimited wealth. But ambition without financial discipline often leads to catastrophe. By early 2022, Corey was managing 15 different renovation projects funded primarily through high-risk, high-interest short-term loans, commonly known as hard money loans. She was deeply in debt, owing millions of dollars to over 20 different lenders. Her desperation had led her to engage in flagrant acts of financial deception. In 2020, Eric discovered that Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against their family home, a property that Eric solely owned, by forging his signature on the documents. The discovery had devastated Eric, prompting him to consult a divorce attorney. Though they ultimately stayed together and attended counseling, the trust between them was permanently broken. It was this betrayal that had driven Eric to alter his estate planning, ensuring that his business and assets would be preserved for his children rather than consumed by his wife's escalating debts. The financial pressure on Corey was compounded by her obsession with a massive, unfinished estate in Midway, Utah, valued at nearly $3 million. She envisioned flipping the mansion or converting it into a luxury wedding and event venue, a project that would require millions of dollars in additional capital she did not possess. The day before Eric's death, she had signed papers to purchase the property, a transaction Eric had explicitly refused to support. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered that Corey's financial desperation had left a trail of ruined lives. Her former best friend, Chelsea Barney, had trusted Corey to assist her in purchasing her first home. Chelsea, who had saved $45,000 in tips from her job as a restaurant manager, gave the money to Corey as a down payment. Corey assured her the transaction was complete, but she never properly filed the deed with the county. The home was eventually foreclosed upon, and Chelsea and her family were evicted, their life savings entirely gone. Another family, Taryn and Alec Wright, purchased a remodeled home from Corey, only to find the walls infested with severe mold and water damage. The family suffered chronic illnesses, and the resulting financial strain forced them into foreclosure, leaving them financially devastated. While these civil and financial revelations were coming to light, the chief medical examiner completed the toxicology report on Eric Richens. The results were staggering. Eric had not died of an aneurysm, a heart attack, or an allergic reaction. His cause of death was determined to be acute drug intoxication. Specifically, the examiner found a massive concentration of fentanyl in his system, 5 times the lethal dose. Furthermore, the toxicology analysis revealed that the substance was not medical-grade fentanyl prescribed by a practitioner, but rather illicitly manufactured fentanyl, the type produced by cartels and sold on the street. The local sheriff's department, led by Detective Jeff O'Driscoll, realized they were no longer investigating a sudden medical tragedy. They were investigating a homicide. A search warrant was executed on the Richens residence, resulting in the seizure of Corey's electronic devices, including her cell phone, while forensic technicians worked to retrieve deleted data from her phone. Investigators focused on identifying the source of the lethal substance. Eric's family immediately shared their long-standing suspicions. They revealed that Eric had fallen violently ill on at least 2 prior occasions after consuming food or drink prepared by Corey. In 2019, during a trip to Greece, Eric became severely ill after taking a sip of a drink Corey had handed him because he was taking medication for Lyme disease that prohibited alcohol consumption. He initially suspected the drink had been spiked. He called his sister in a panic, stating he believed Corey was trying to poison him. More recently, on Valentine's Day of 2022, Corey had purchased a bagel sandwich from a local diner, leaving it for Eric with a loving note. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe physical reaction, requiring him to use his son's epinephrine auto-injector and consume Benadryl before falling into a deep sleep. Afterward, he texted a friend, stating, "You almost lost me this time. I think she might have poisoned me." The breakthrough in the investigation came from the forensic extraction of Corey's phone records. A private investigator hired by the Richens family had analyzed thousands of her text messages, identifying 3 primary contacts in the months surrounding Eric's death: her husband, her mother, and a woman named Carmen Lauber. Carmen Lauber had a history of drug-related offenses and had worked occasionally as a cleaner for Corey's real estate properties. Recognizing a potential link,
Détective Audrey Scolini initiated surveillance en OB.
After discovering drug paraphernalia and an illegal firearm at her residence, authorities leveraged the charges to secure her cooperation. Faced with substantial prison time, Carmen confessed to her role in the conspiracy. She revealed that Corey had contacted her on 2 separate occasions prior to Eric's death, requesting heavy-duty pain medication for an investor. Carmen admitted she had procured 30 fentanyl pills from a local dealer named Robert Crozier and delivered them to Corey. When Corey requested a second, stronger batch, claiming the first was not powerful enough, Carmen procured another 15 to 20 pills. The timing of the transactions was damning. Phone records showed an exchange of 30 text messages between Corey and Carmen on Valentine's Day, the very day Eric was poisoned by the bagel sandwich. A second delivery of pills occurred on February 26th, just days before Eric's fatal overdose. On May 8th, 2023, Corey Richens was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and multiple counts of possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community, transforming the self-proclaimed champion of grieving children into a accused killer. During her pretrial detention in the Summit County Jail, Corey's penchant for writing would once again prove to be her undoing. During a routine search of her cell, corrections officers discovered a handwritten 4-page letter hidden in her mattress, titled "Walk the Dog." The document was addressed to her mother, Lisa Darden, containing explicit instructions for Corey's brother, Ronnie, to fabricate testimony. The letter instructed Ronnie to testify that Eric had admitted to obtaining pain pills and fentanyl from workers on his family's cattle ranch and from Mexico. It was a transparent attempt at witness tampering designed to plant an alternative theory of how the lethal drugs entered Eric's system. When confronted with the letter, Corey claimed it was merely a draft of a fictional manuscript, a creative writing exercise, but the prosecution saw it as a clear demonstration of consciousness of guilt. In March of 2024, the state amended the charges to include attempted murder for the Valentine's Day poisoning. Shortly thereafter, another devastating piece of evidence emerged from an unexpected source. A handyman named Josh Grossman, who had worked on Corey's renovation properties, came forward after watching the media coverage of her arrest. He revealed to investigators that he and Corey had been engaged in a passionate, secret affair for over a year. The forensic extraction of their text messages revealed a deeply romantic relationship, with Corey repeatedly professing her love and promising a future together. The texts revealed the psychological mechanics of her plan. Corey described a dream where she would divorce Eric, secure millions of dollars, purchase the Midway mansion, and live in the guest house with Josh while running the main house as a lucrative event venue. On February 23, 2022, just 48 hours before Eric's death, Corey sent a text to Josh that read, "Hang in until Friday. Life is going to be different. I promise." When the murder trial commenced in Summit County, the courtroom was packed with media, onlookers, and the families of both the victim and the accused. The prosecutor, Brad Bloodworth, presented a meticulous case, laying out a mountain of circumstantial and digital evidence. He illustrated her astronomical debts, her forged documents, her calculated drug purchases, and her secret romance. The state's witnesses were powerful. Eric's sister, Katie, delivered a heartbreaking account of the family's loss. Carmen Lauber took the stand, weeping as she admitted to supplying the lethal pills. Josh Grossman testified, with visible discomfort as his private, romantic texts were projected on a massive screen for the jury to read, recounting a conversation in Corey's car, where she had chillingly asked him if he had ever killed anyone during his military service in Iraq and how it had made him feel. When the state rested its case after 13 days of testimony, the courtroom held its collective breath, anticipating the defense's response. Corey's defense team, led by public defenders Kathy Nestor and Wendy Lewis, huddled together in brief consultation. Then, in a move that stunned the gallery, the defense rested immediately, calling not a single witness to the stand. They believed the prosecution had failed to establish a direct, physical link showing exactly how the fentanyl had entered Eric's body, as no forensic traces of the drug were found on the glassware or in the home. The jury of 8 individuals deliberated for just under 3 hours. In that quiet room, the discussion was robust and methodical, while some jurors initially hesitated over the lack of direct physical evidence, the sheer volume of circumstantial, financial, and digital evidence ultimately left no room for reasonable doubt. When the court reconvened, Corey Richens stood in her street clothes, her hands clasped before her. The foreperson read the verdict, guilty on all counts, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, and insurance fraud. Outside the courthouse, Eric's family embraced, weeping with relief. Justice, though delayed, had been served. The tragic irony of the case remained. The children's book Corey had written to profit from her husband's death had ultimately shone the bright, national spotlight that ensured her capture.
Corey
Richens had lost her wealth, her freedom, and her children, who were subsequently adopted by Eric's sister, leaving her to face a life sentence in the very prison system she had once researched on her phone. Part 2. Silence at Paradise Ranch. Nestled halfway between the bustling hubs of San Francisco and Los Angeles lies El Paso de Robles, a region of California defined by its rolling hills, ancient oak trees, and sprawling, sun-drenched vineyards. Known to locals as the Pass of the Oaks, it is a picturesque sanctuary, a place where people go to escape the frantic pace of modern life and immerse themselves in the quiet beauty of nature. In 2018, 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum lived a peaceful, productive life in this scenic valley. A prominent hairstylist and owner of downtown Paso Robles' popular salon, The Strand, Nancy was a beloved fixture of the community, known for her warmth, her generosity, and her deep, devout faith. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, she possessed a rare gift for making everyone she met feel valued and welcomed. Nancy had endured significant personal tragedies. She and her late husband, Robert, had lost an infant son, Christopher, who died at just 10 days old, and later, their teenage daughter, Amy, who succumbed to cystic fibrosis shortly before her 18th birthday. Robert himself had passed away suddenly from a heart attack, leaving Nancy to navigate her senior years alone. Yet her faith remained unshaken. She held on to the hope of a future paradise on earth, a belief that sustained her through her grief. In 2006, Robert and Nancy had purchased a secluded, rustic property on El Faro Road. Together, they had remodeled the two-story Victorian home and its adjacent guest cottage, transforming the estate into a beautiful vacation rental they named Paradise Ranch. Nancy lived in a small, detached studio apartment on the property, enjoying the peaceful surroundings and her beloved Horse, Montana. On the weekend of May 4th, 2018, a large wedding party
checked into Paradise Ranch.
The bride, her bridesmaids, and their families had traveled to Paso Robles for a vineyard wedding, looking forward to a celebratory weekend. Nancy met them upon their arrival, welcoming them with hugs and her
signature hospitality.
But by Saturday morning, May 5th, the tranquil atmosphere of Paradise Ranch was shattered. Nancy's daughter, Amanda, who worked alongside her mother at the salon, grew concerned when Nancy failed to appear for a scheduled Bible study. Amanda called a neighbor to check on her mother. The neighbor arrived at the studio apartment to find the front door wide open, the television blaring, and no sign of Nancy. Amanda rushed to the property, entering her mother's home with a growing sense of dread. Inside, she found Nancy's purse, car keys, cell phone, and iPad. Sitting on a bench, her mother's vehicles were still parked outside. But the bedroom presented a horrifying scene. The bedding, sheets, and pillows were entirely missing from the bed. On the carpet, there were 2 large, dark stains. On the walls and headboard, there was a fine spray of blood spatter. Amanda grabbed her phone, her hands shaking as she dialed 911. The response was immediate. Reserve Detective Clinton Cole of the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office was among the first to arrive on the scene. Standing in the doorway of the quiet cottage, Cole's instincts told him this was not a simple missing persons case. The lack of forced entry, combined with the blood stains and the abandoned personal effects, indicated that Nancy had been violently assaulted and taken against her will. As a forensic team began documenting the scene, investigators faced an immediate challenge. The wedding party, consisting of more than 20 guests, was staying in the main house just yards away. Any one of them could be a potential suspect, having had direct, unrestricted access to the property. The search for Nancy expanded rapidly across the rugged foothills and dry riverbeds of the surrounding area. Volunteers, search and rescue teams, and helicopters scoured the terrain, but the vast wilderness offered no immediate answers. Late Saturday evening, a critical discovery was made 6 miles away on La Panza Road. A California Highway Patrol officer spotted several items discarded on the roadside: a mattress protector, a pillow, a woman's dress, shorts, and a shirt. Amanda confirmed that the gingham print bedding and clothing belonged to her mother. The items were stained with blood, suggesting that Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding and transported from the property, either gravely injured or deceased. Detectives initiated a systematic round of interviews with the wedding guests. Most had spent Friday evening at a rehearsal dinner, returning late and going to bed. However, one male guest could not initially account for his movements, raising immediate red flags. He became defensive and uncooperative when questioned. Determined to resolve the anomaly, Detective Cole and his partner traveled to the guest's home in Northern California. Upon arrival, the man's demeanor had changed. He was cooperative, and his wife provided photographs demonstrating he had indeed been at the rehearsal dinner. He voluntarily provided a DNA sample, clearing him of suspicion. Investigators then turned their attention to other individuals who had access to the property. Nancy had recently decided to sell Paradise Ranch to focus full-time on her missionary work. A team of local contractors, including painters, plumbers, and general contractors, had been working on the estate to prepare it for escrow. Among them was Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had recently been fired by Nancy after a heated dispute over payment. Bloom was known to be extremely angry about the financial conflict, making him a prime person of interest.
When
initially interviewed, Bloom refused to provide a DNA sample, citing a distrust of law enforcement, which heightened investigators' suspicions. However, he eventually complied, and the laboratory confirmed his DNA did not match the evidence found at the scene. Detectives also faced the painful necessity of investigating Nancy's estranged
son, Chad.
The relationship between Nancy and Chad had been highly contentious, centered on religious differences and access to her grandchildren. On the night of her disappearance, Chad had sent Nancy a series of tense text messages.
Like
Bloom, Chad initially refused to cooperate with DNA testing. Investigators placed him under surveillance, eventually retrieving a discarded beer bottle. After arresting him for a minor traffic violation, the laboratory analysis subsequently cleared Chad as well. With all immediate leads exhausted, the investigation stalled. The community grew anxious, and Nancy's family was suspended in a state of agonizing uncertainty. It was then that detectives decided to utilize a cutting-edge digital investigative tool, geofencing. This technology allowed investigators to draw a virtual boundary around Nancy's property and request anonymized location data from Google for any devices active within that boundary during a specific time frame. The key to the timeline was a failed 911 call. Forensic analysis of Nancy's phone bill revealed that a call to emergency services had been attempted at 12:17 in the morning on May 5th, lasting 0 seconds before the device was disconnected. This provided a precise timestamp for the assault. When Google returned the geofence data, investigators analyzed the coordinates. Among the devices active on the property, one stood out. While the wedding guest devices were dormant, a single device had pinged inside Nancy's studio apartment at 1:33 and again at 1:52 in the morning. A subsequent warrant for the subscriber information revealed the identity of the device owner, Carlo Fuentes Flores. The name was immediately recognized. Carlo was a 36-year-old local painter who had been hired to paint the decks on the main house. During his initial interview shortly after the disappearance, he had been mild-mannered, polite, and cooperative, offering no reason for suspicion.
He was a married
father with no prior criminal record in the United States or Mexico. But the digital evidence did not lie. His phone had been inside Nancy's residence in the dead of night, hours after his shift had ended. Detectives initiated a deep dive into Carlo's digital footprint. His Google search history revealed a dark, secret double life that stood in stark contrast to his image as a devoted family man. Carlo had frequently searched for cougar porn and escorts, demonstrating a specific sexual fixation on older women. Furthermore, his phone contained numerous self-shot videos of encounters with various women. To secure an arrest, investigators needed a direct link. They placed Carlo under surveillance, following him to a local restaurant where he had lunch with his wife. When they departed, detectives retrieved the plastic Coca-Cola bottle Carlo had used. The laboratory completed the analysis within days. The DNA extracted from the Coca-Cola bottle was an identical match to the DNA found in a bloody handprint on the pillow in Nancy's bedroom. On December 18, 2018, Carlo Fuentes Flores was brought to the sheriff's department for questioning. In the interrogation room, Detective Cole and his partner played a patient, strategic game. They began by asking Carlo about his work at the ranch, establishing his familiarity with the property. Carlo maintained his polite, cooperative demeanor, denying any knowledge of Nancy's whereabouts. Then the detectives shifted the pressure. They informed him they had undeniable scientific proof of his presence in her room. They showed him the DNA match. The physical change in Carlo was immediate. His posture slumped, his breathing grew heavy, and his eyes filled with panic. He confessed, initially claiming he had returned to the property in the middle of the night to retrieve a ladder, accidentally striking Nancy with his truck and bringing her inside to help her. But the detectives did not buy the hit-and-run narrative. They pressed further, challenging the physical evidence of sexual assault and suffocation. Finally, the truth emerged. Carlo admitted he had gone to Nancy's home with the intent of sexually assaulting her, believing she had been flirting with him when she offered him tamales during his shift. He entered her home, assaulted her, raped her, and then, to prevent her from identifying him, smothered her to death with a pillow. When asked where Nancy's body was, Carlo offered to lead detectives to her remains. In the quiet hours of the night, a convoy of police vehicles traveled east toward the remote Carrizo Plain, a barren, arid landscape on the border of Kern County. Carlo sat in the back seat, navigating the dark, winding roads. After several wrong turns, he pointed to a distant cluster of rocks in the brush. There, beneath a shallow pile of stones, investigators discovered Nancy's skeletal remains, scattered by wildlife over the months she'd been missing. Carlo fell to his knees, weeping and asking the detectives to tell his daughter he was sorry for his mistake. To avoid a public trial and protect his family from the media spotlight, Carlo Fuentes Flores entered a slow plea, allowing the judge to review the evidence and find him guilty of first-degree murder with a special circumstance of rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Though Nancy's life had been tragically cut short, her memory remained a guiding light for her family. Amanda and her daughter continued the family tradition of horseback riding, finding peace in the hills Nancy had loved, comforted by the knowledge that justice had finally been served. Part 3. The Silent Alarm. The city of Evansville, Indiana, situated along the scenic bends of the Ohio River, is a place where industrial heritage meets close-knit community values. Within this city, the members of the Evansville Fire Department are regarded not just as civil servants, but as local heroes, a brotherhood bound by shared danger, and mutual respect. Among them, Robert Robbie Dorr was a titan, a veteran firefighter of 28 years. Robbie had followed in his father's footsteps, dedicating his life to the service of others. He was a natural leader known for his infectious, booming laugh, his courage in the face of roaring flames, and his dedication to training the rookie recruits. To support his family, Robbie worked multiple jobs, including a management position at a local Taco John's restaurant. It was there that he met Elizabeth Becky Fox. Becky, who had been married 5 times previously, was drawn to Robbie's stability and protective nature. Robbie, in turn, fell deeply in love. They were married in a beautiful ceremony on the beach in Panama City, Florida. In 2018, to the outside world, they appeared to have achieved a picture-perfect life. Becky stayed at home, maintaining a beautifully decorated house, while Robbie worked long, exhausting shifts to provide for her and her children. But beneath the surface, the quick marriage was fracturing under the weight of financial strain and deep-seated suspicion. Robbie had begun to question Becky's fidelity, noticing that she was fiercely protective of her cell phone and frequently deleted her text messages. He confided in his daughter, Lindsay, and his fellow firefighters, expressing growing anxiety about the state of his marriage. The financial pressure was mounting. Upon returning from their wedding, the couple had purchased a new vehicle, expensive furniture, and home appliances, exhausting Robbie's credit and leaving them deeply in debt. On the freezing night of February 26, 2019, Robbie arrived home after a grueling 12-hour shift at the fire department. His headlights swept across the driveway of his Oakley Street home. Inside the house, Becky was preparing dinner, thick-cut pork chops and macaroni and cheese. Within moments of Robbie's arrival, a series of sharp, popping sounds echoed through the neighborhood. A neighbor sitting in a nearby garage heard 5 distinct gunshots. Becky placed a frantic call to 911, screaming that her husband had been shot. When police officers and paramedics arrived, they found Robbie lying on the concrete driveway. He had suffered multiple gunshot wounds, including a fatal shot to the head. His fellow firefighters rushed to the scene, their grief and shock turning the quiet street into a chaotic arena of flashing lights and tears. A solemn procession of fire engines escorted Robbie's body to the coroner's office, their sirens silent in respect for a fallen brother. The initial investigation, led by Detective Blake Keene, faced an immediate hurdle. There were no shell casings left at the scene. However, a single damaged projectile was retrieved from the pavement. The breakthrough began at the autopsy. The forensic pathologist extracted several distinct projectiles from Robbie's body, revealing a highly unusual mixture. Some were jacketed bullets, some were ball ammunition, and some were accompanied by plastic shotgun-style wadding. Ballistics experts identified the weapon as a Taurus Judge, a massive revolver designed to fire both .45 Colt ammunition and 410 bore shotgun shells from the same cylinder. It was a unique, highly recognizable hand cannon. Armed with this information, investigators began researching recent thefts of such weapons. They discovered that a tourist judge had recently been stolen from a local pawn shop, River City Pawn. The pawn shop records revealed a critical link. An employee at the shop was a young man named Larry Richmond Jr. When investigators analyzed Jr.'s social media, they discovered a photograph of him posing with a tourist judge, revolver in his lap, a photo taken months before the murder. Even more significant was Larry Jr.'s father, Larry Richmond Sr. Larry Richmond Sr. was a 41-year-old convicted felon who had recently been released from prison after serving 20 years for a voluntary manslaughter conviction. At the time of Robbie's murder, Larry Sr. was living with Becky's sister, Mandy Fillmore, in a house just streets away from the door residence. Mandy had brought Larry Sr. to Thanksgiving dinner with the family, keeping his violent criminal past a secret from her relatives. Larry Sr. was known to be a smooth-talking, tall man who easily charmed those around him, but he was also carrying on secret affairs with several other women behind Mandy's back. As detectives constructed a war room with a massive whiteboard, they drew lines connecting the victims, the suspects, and their families. They executed a coordinated sweep, bringing Becky, Mandy, Larry Sr., and Larry Jr. in for questioning simultaneously. During her interview, Becky adamantly denied any involvement, maintaining that she had been inside cooking when she heard the shots. But when investigators presented the forensic extraction of her cell phone records, they exposed a critical lie. A phone call had been made to Becky's phone just 5 minutes before the shooting, lasting 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Becky had deleted the call log from her phone immediately after the call ended, prior to calling 911. When pressed by detectives, Becky claimed she could not remember who had called her. But Sprint's corporate records do not lie. The deleted call had originated from a burner phone possessed by Larry Richmond Sr. Under intense questioning, Becky finally admitted she had spoken to Larry Sr., claiming he was merely calling to ask her to tell Mandy something. But investigators believe the call was far more sinister, a tactical update with Becky informing Larry Sr. that Robbie was on his way home. Meanwhile, Larry Richmond Jr. cracked under pressure. He admitted his father had multiple firearms hidden at Mandy's house. He revealed that on the night of the murder, his father had buried a plastic tote box filled with guns in Mandy's backyard. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's house confirmed the story, showing Larry Sr. carrying a box into the yard with a shovel in the dead of night. Police descended on the property, digging up the yard and retrieving the box of guns. Although the murder weapon, the tourist judge, was not in the box, they found several illegal firearms, leading to federal weapons charges against both Larry Sr. and Larry Jr. A crucial piece of physical evidence was discovered by Robbie's son, Nathan, who was searching through the condolence cards received after the funeral. Inside a card signed by Mandy and Larry Sr., Nathan found a small, torn piece of notebook paper. Written in Larry Sr.'s handwriting was a brief, urgent message to Becky. We need to talk. Despite the mounting circumstantial evidence, investigators lacked a definitive link. Larry Sr. refused to provide the passcode to his iPhone, stalling the investigation for months. The breakthrough came from John Carter of the High-Tech Crime Unit. Using advanced digital forensic algorithms, Carter's team spent 8 months systematically cracking the phone's security. When the data was finally extracted, it painted a devastating picture of Larry Sr.'s movements on the night of the murder. GPS location data placed Larry Sr.'s phone creeping through the alleys behind Robbie's house starting at 6 o'clock in the evening. He was stalking his target, waiting in the dark. At 6:46, he placed the call to Becky, who confirmed that Robbie was arriving. Larry Sr. then powered down his phone at 6:52. Robbie arrived at 7 o'clock, and the shots were fired. At 7:11, surveillance footage from a nearby Circle K gas station showed Larry Sr. arriving in a t-shirt and jeans despite the freezing cold, calmly purchasing items as he powered his phone back on. The motive was clear, a toxic combination of financial greed, as Becky had inquired about Robbie's fire department pension the very night of his death, and a secret, illicit affair between Becky and her sister's fiancé, Larry Sr. In 2022, Elizabeth, Becky Fox-Dorr, and Larry Richmond Sr. were arrested and charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. During Becky's trial, the prosecution presented a seamless case of circumstantial conspiracy. Her own son, Nathan, took the stand, delivering a powerful testimony regarding his mother's immediate, cold focus on Robbie's financial assets after his death. The jury found her guilty, and she was sentenced to 90 years in prison. Larry Richmond Sr.'s trial followed. Despite a spirited defense, the digital tracking data, combined with testimony from his own son and prison informants, proved insurmountable. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Robbie Dorr's family finally found peace, knowing that the man who had dedicated his life to saving others was honored by a community that refused to let his killer walk free. The Evansville Fire Department dedicated their newest engine in Robbie's memory, ensuring his legacy of service would continue to roll through the streets he had protected. Part 4. The Double Shadow. The landscape of Ohio is dotted with quiet railroad towns and tight-knit agricultural communities where generational ties run deep. In Willard, Ohio, a hardworking hub in Huron County, life in 2001 was quiet and predictable. But beneath that predictability lay one of the region's oldest and most haunting mysteries: the disappearance and death of Regina Roe Hicks. Regina was a spirited, tomboyish young woman who loved country music, dirt bikes, and her young son, Montana. She had met Paul Daniel Hicks in high school, and the two eventually married. But the marriage was marked by Paul's pathological need for control. Over the years, Regina's vibrant personality faded as Paul isolated her from her friends and family. In the summer of 2001, a suspicious fire destroyed their family home. While the couple was away on a late-night fishing trip, the insurance payout of $60,000 granted Regina a rare moment of independence. She used her half of the money to purchase a white Chevrolet Camaro and filed for divorce, determined to build a new life for herself and her son. On the crisp autumn evening of October 18, 2001, Regina had
plans.
She was scheduled to pick up 4-year-old Montana from Paul, who was staying at the home of his best friend, Stephen Gates. Regina dropped Montana off with her mother, Losella, and spent the night out with her new boyfriend, Mikey Perkins. She never arrived. 4 days later, a farmer riding an all-terrain vehicle spotted something unusual submerged in a deep pond on his property. It was Regina's white Camaro. When dive teams and investigators retrieved the vehicle, they made a horrifying discovery. Regina's body was in the passenger seat, her feet tucked tightly. Beneath the console, her torso slumped. The physical evidence of a staged crime was immediately apparent. The driver's seat was pushed all the way back, accommodating a much larger driver. The steering wheel was tilted up, and the driver's side window was rolled down. The autopsy revealed that Regina had suffered 3 distinct blows to her head, sufficient to render her unconscious but not kill her. The presence of water and mud in her lungs proved she had been alive and breathing when the car was driven into the freezing pond. She had drowned, trapped in the passenger seat of her own car. Paul Hicks was the immediate prime suspect, but he presented a polished alibi, claiming Regina had simply failed to show up to pick up Montana.
He suggested
she had left to party or purchase drugs, pointing to a recent police stop where marijuana and pills had been found in her car, a stop she had claimed was a setup engineered by Paul. Without direct forensic evidence, DNA, or a confession, the investigation stalled. Regina's mother, Losella, waged a tireless 15-year campaign for justice, putting up billboards and demanding answers until her death from
cancer.
The case grew cold, and Montana was raised by Paul's family, kept away from his mother's relatives. 14 years later, in 2015, a dramatic structure fire occurred in Goshen, Ohio, nearly 100 miles away. The home belonged to Paul Hicks, who had relocated and was working as a railroad foreman. Paul claimed he was the victim of a vindictive ex-girlfriend, Kelly, with whom he was engaged in a bitter custody dispute over their young son, Daniel. Paul provided investigators with high-definition surveillance footage from his home's security system, which had survived the fire inside a gun safe.
The
footage showed a male and a female in protective Tyvek suits pouring gasoline throughout the home before igniting it. The female arsonist had long, curly, blonde hair on display and walked directly beneath the camera, presenting a face that Paul immediately identified as Kelly's. Kelly was arrested and faced devastating arson charges, but an insurance Attorney and investigator named Zach McCune began to notice significant anomalies. Forensic analysis of the phone records revealed that while Paul's phone showed over 90 incoming harassing calls from Kelly's number on the night of the fire, Kelly's actual cell phone records showed she had made no such calls. Investigators traced the calls to a digital service called Spoof Card, used to mask the caller's true identity. The IP address used to make the calls was traced to a burner phone purchased by a woman associated with Paul Hicks. The investigation took a bizarre turn when financial records revealed a purchase at a store called Kay's Wigs for a blonde wig matching Kelly's hairstyle. Even more shocking was a purchase from a novelty website called That's My Face. The transaction, funded by Paul's associate, was for a custom-made, highly realistic rubber mask created from photographs of Kelly's face. Paul Hicks had engineered an elaborate, theatrical plot to frame his ex-girlfriend for arson, sacrificing his own investment property to secure sole custody of their son and escape child support obligations. The civil court ruled in favor of the insurance company, levying a $400,000 judgment against Paul. He was eventually charged with insurance fraud, receiving probation after a plea deal. But the exposure of Paul's calculated, deviant behavior in Claremont County caught the attention of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation in Northern Ohio. Investigators realized they were dealing with a master manipulator whose patterns of domestic control and structural fires were remarkably consistent. In 2024, a local podcaster named Ashley Ford began a series of episodes focusing on the cold case of Regina Hicks. The podcast generated massive public interest, riling up the community and putting immense pressure on key figures. Among them was Stephen Gates, Paul's lifelong best friend. Gates had maintained for 23 years that Regina had never arrived at his property on the night of her disappearance. But faced with renewed scrutiny and the threat of prosecution, Gates' attorney reached out to the state, negotiating an immunity deal in exchange for the truth. Gates confessed. He revealed that on the night of October 18, 2001, Regina had arrived at his home. An argument erupted between Regina and Paul in the driveway. Gates went into his garage, turning on his tractor and radio to block out the noise. When he emerged, he saw Regina's white Camaro parked near the road. The passenger door was open, and Paul was standing over the vehicle. When Gates looked inside, he saw Regina unconscious in the passenger seat. Paul told him she was dead, warning Gates that he was now an accomplice. Paul drove the Camaro to the farm pond, with Gates following in another vehicle. With young Montana sleeping in the back seat, Gates watched as Paul drove the car into the water, leaving Regina to drown. On the drive back, Paul used his cell phone to call Regina's phone, deliberately creating a false digital trail to
support his alibi.
Armed with Gates' confession, BCI investigators arrested Paul Hicks on April 22, 2025, charging him with murder and
kidnapping.
During the trial in Huron County, The prosecution presented a powerful narrative of systematic, lifelong domestic abuse and financial motivation. Witnesses testified to Paul's history of control, his boasting about how to beat a polygraph test, and his habit of studying forensic files to evade detection. The defense pointed to the lack of physical DNA or soil evidence, but the testimony of Stephen Gates, combined with the chilling pattern of the Claremont County mask plot, left no doubt in the minds of the jury. After a 3-hour deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty.
Paul
Hicks was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Regina's family, though scarred by decades of silence and the loss of her mother, Losella, finally achieved the justice they had fought for. Regina was remembered not as a cold case file, but as a loving mother and a vibrant soul, whose light, though extinguished too soon, had finally been honored by the
truth.
Conclusion. The pursuit of justice is rarely a swift or simple endeavor,
as demonstrated by
the complex, unfolding narratives across Utah, California, Indiana, and Ohio. The resolution of human tragedies requires a profound, enduring commitment from those who refuse to let the silence of deception prevail. Whether through the application of advanced digital geofencing, the systematic analysis of ballistic anomalies, or the patient extraction of long-hidden confessions, the truth remains a resilient force. It dismantles the most calculated alibis, pierces through elaborate theatrical disguises, and exposes the hollow core of those who seek to profit from the suffering of others. In the end, the true measure of these investigations is not the punishment of the guilty, but the restoration of peace to the living. By honoring the memories of Eric Richins, Nancy Woodrum, Robbie Dorr, and Regina Rowe Hicks, the communities they left behind can move forward, secure in the knowledge that no matter how dark the shadow of deception, the light of justice will always find its way home. The human heart is a complex cartography of light and shadow, capable of the most profound acts of devotion and, conversely, the most calculated deceptions. In the quiet corners of our world, where the landscape seems to offer only peace and predictability, tragedies unfold that challenge our understanding of neighborly goodwill. The stories that follow are not merely accounts of crime and punishment. They are deep examinations of the human condition. They reveal how greed, jealousy, and the desire for control can drive individuals to construct elaborate facades of innocence, and how those facades are inevitably dismantled by the quiet, methodical persistence of justice. Through the diligent work of investigators, the courage of witnesses, and the enduring memories of those who are lost, we find a reassuring truth. No matter how carefully a secret is buried, the light eventually finds a way to shine upon it. This chronicle explores 4 distinct journeys through tragedy and resolution, spanning the quiet mountain valleys of Utah, the tight-knit neighborhoods of Indiana, the rural railway towns of Ohio, and the scenic vineyards of California. In each narrative, we witness the devastating impact of a life taken too soon, the psychological struggles of those left behind, and the relentless pursuit of truth that restores balance to shaken communities. The storybook illusion. In the high mountain valleys of Summit County, Utah, the town of Kama sits beneath a vast sky framed by the rugged peaks of the Uinta Mountains.
It is a
place where the air is crisp, the winters are long, and families have lived for generations, bound by shared faith and hard work. To the casual observer, it is an idyllic setting, a sanctuary from the complexities of modern urban life.
It
was here that Eric Richens lived, a 39-year-old stonemason whose life was defined by the ancient craft of shaping rock and the modern devotion of raising his 3 young sons. Eric was a man of the earth, possessing a quiet strength that mirrored the materials he worked with. He was deeply connected to his family ranch, where his sisters rode horses, and the rhythm of life was governed by the seasons.
Raised
in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he had carried his faith with him on a 2-year mission to Mexico City, returning with a fluent command of Spanish and a strengthened resolve to build a meaningful life. His business, C&E Masonry, was highly successful, a testament to his tireless work ethic. Yet his proudest achievement was not the beautiful homes he helped construct, but his 3 boys, aged 10, 9, and 6. He was their soccer coach, their mentor, and their constant source of laughter. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, a quiet storm was gathering. In the winter of 2022, the warmth of the family home was increasingly replaced by a cold, unspoken tension. The source of this friction was a complex web of financial ambition and marital discord that would soon lead to a devastating end. On the night of March 3rd, 2022, Corey Richens, Eric's wife, claimed they were celebrating a significant milestone. Corey, an ambitious real estate agent who had transitioned from cleaning luxury homes to flipping them, was on the verge of acquiring her most ambitious project yet, a massive, unfinished mansion in Midway, Utah, valued at nearly $3 million.
To
Corey, this property was more than an investment. It was the ultimate symbol of success, proof that she had risen above her humble beginnings. She claimed that she and Eric shared a mixed drink in their bedroom to toast to their prosperous future before she went to tend to one of their sons, who was suffering from a night terror. At a little after 3 o'clock in the morning on March 4th, a frantic call was placed to the emergency dispatch operators. Corey's voice filled the line, breathless and panicked, reporting that her husband was cold to the touch and not breathing. When deputy sheriffs and paramedics arrived at the home, they found a scene of desperate urgency. In the master bedroom, Eric lay on his back, on the floor, lifeless. The rhythmic, mechanical sound of a cardiopulmonary resuscitation machine soon filled the quiet room as emergency medical technicians worked to revive him. In the hallway, 2 of the young boys stood with their ears pressed to the door, confused and silent, while their mother
wept.
To the first responders, the sudden death of an athletic, healthy young man was deeply perplexing. An initial hypothesis of a sudden brain aneurysm was whispered among the officers and the family, a tragic but natural explanation for an unthinkable loss. Eric's sister, Katie, arrived shortly after the news. Broke, her raw, guttural cries of grief echoing through the home as she tried to shield her young nephews from the unfolding nightmare. In the days that followed, Corey presented herself to the world as a portrait of profound grief. She spoke of the unbearable silence of the nights, of the struggle to explain the permanent absence of a father to 3 little boys who kept looking for him in the corners of their home,
finding no literature that
spoke to the unique, tender process of childhood grief. Corey decided to write her own. She self-published a children's book titled Are You With Me?, dedicated to her amazing husband and wonderful father. The book, written with the help of a ghostwriter, sought to reassure children that the spirit of their lost parent remained beside them, cheering at soccer games and listening to their quiet thoughts at night. Corey appeared on local television programs, her voice soft, her demeanor vulnerable, as she shared her story of tragedy and healing with a sympathetic public. But even as the book found its way onto bookstore shelves, the foundation of Corey's carefully constructed narrative was beginning to crumble. The post-mortem examination of Eric's body had revealed a truth that could not be reconciled with a sudden medical event. The toxicological analysis identified a lethal concentration of illicitly manufactured fentanyl in his system, 5 times the amount required to end a human life. This was not a pharmaceutical grade substance that could be traced to a doctor's prescription. It was a potent, street-level narcotic. With the cause of death established as drug intoxication, the Summit County Sheriff's Office initiated a quiet but thorough criminal investigation. Detectives began to look past the public image of the grieving widow, delving deep into the financial realities of the Richens household. What they discovered was a mountain of debt. Corey's real estate ventures, far from being highly successful, were leveraged with high-interest short-term loans.
She owed
millions of dollars to over 20 different lenders. The investigation also revealed a deep, structural rift in the marriage that had begun years prior. In 2020, Eric had discovered that Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against their family home, which he solely owned, without his knowledge or consent. This betrayal had prompted Eric to quietly consult a divorce attorney and to make significant changes to his estate plan. He created a secret trust, naming his children as the sole beneficiaries and appointing his sister, Katie, as the executor, effectively removing Corey from any control over his assets. The tension surrounding this estate plan erupted into public view just 2 days after Eric's death, when Corey attempted to have a locksmith open the family safe to retrieve the will. Eric's sister, Amy, confronted her The argument became physical, resulting in Corey being charged with and subsequently pleading no contest to assault. The solidarity between the two families was permanently broken. As detectives examined Corey's electronic devices, they traced her communications in the weeks leading up to Eric's death. They identified a housekeeper, Carmen Lauber, who had a history of drug-related offenses. Through a series of interviews and a search of Carmen's residence, investigators uncovered a devastating sequence of events. Carmen confessed that Corey had asked her to procure powerful pain medication, specifically fentanyl, on 2 separate occasions. The first batch, delivered in February, was apparently deemed insufficient by Corey, who requested a stronger dosage. The timing of these transactions aligned with previous, unexplained illnesses that Eric had suffered. During a trip to Greece in 2019, Eric had become violently ill after consuming a drink he suspected was contaminated. More significantly, on Valentine's Day of 2022, Corey had purchased a bagel sandwich for Eric from a local diner. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe reaction, requiring him to use his son's epinephrine auto-injector and take heavy doses of antihistamines. He had texted a friend afterward, expressing a dark suspicion that his wife was attempting to poison him. On May 8, 2023, the community was stunned when Corey Richens was arrested and charged with the aggravated murder of her husband, along with charges of possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. The arrest transformed the local tragedy into a national sensation, a striking contrast between the compassionate author of a book on grief and the accused architect of her husband's demise. While Corey remained held without bail in the Summit County Jail, further evidence continued to emerge. During a routine search of her cell, deputies discovered a handwritten, four-page letter hidden within her belongings. Titled, "Walk the Dog," the letter was addressed to her mother, instructing her to contact Corey's brother and direct him to testify that Eric had obtained pain pills and fentanyl from workers in Mexico. The prosecution argued this was a clear attempt at witness tampering, a desperate effort to fabricate an alternative explanation for the source of the lethal drugs. The financial fallout of Corey's actions also became clear. The grand, unfinished mansion in Midway, the dream that had driven so much of her ambition, was lost to foreclosure. Several of her former friends and clients came forward, revealing how her financial desperation had led to ruinous business dealings, including a close friend who lost her savings and her home in a real estate transaction that was never properly recorded. In late 2024, after a change in her legal defense team, Corey's trial began in a small courthouse near Park City. The courtroom was filled with tension as the prosecution presented a methodical, daily case detailing the debt, the secret estate plans, the drug purchases, and the previous poisoning attempts. The state also called her former lover, Josh Grossman, who testified to their romantic relationship and the text messages they exchanged, including One sent 48 hours before Eric's death, promising that her life would soon be different. The defense, asserting that the state's case was entirely circumstantial and lacked direct proof of how the drugs were administered, made a surprising decision at the conclusion of the prosecution's case. They rested without calling any witnesses or presenting a defense of their own, confident that the high standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt had not been met. After a deliberation of just under 3 hours, the 8-member jury returned to the courtroom. The verdict was unanimous: guilty of aggravated murder and insurance fraud. The long, complex journey to justice had reached its conclusion, leaving a family to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. Eric's 3 sons, who had been the center of his world, were placed in the custody of his sister, ensuring they would grow up surrounded by the memories of the father who had loved them so deeply. The echoes on Oakley Street. 1,000 miles to the east, in the city of Evansville, Indiana, the Ohio River. Winds past historic brick buildings and quiet residential streets. It is a city with a proud blue-collar heritage where neighbors look out for one another, and the local fire department is viewed with immense respect. Robert "Robbie" Dorr was a centerpiece of that department, a veteran firefighter with 28 years of service who had dedicated his life to protecting his fellow citizens. Robbie was a second-generation firefighter, following in the footsteps of his father. He was a man of action, known for his bravery in rescuing a child from a burning building early in his career, and for his dedication as a mentor to young rookies entering the service. Like many firefighters, Robbie worked multiple jobs to provide for his family, managing a local Taco John's restaurant. In addition to his long shifts at the station, it was at the restaurant that he met Elizabeth Becky Fox, a woman whose life had been marked by early hardship. Becky had been born into adversity, spent time in a foster home with limited resources, and was eventually adopted at a young age alongside her sister, Mandy. She had been married multiple times before finding stability with Robbie. Their courtship was swift, culminating in a beautiful, sunlit beach wedding in Florida. To Robbie's stepchildren, he quickly became a hero, a steady and loving presence who embraced them as his own. But the peace of the new marriage was short-lived. Within months of their return from Florida, the financial strain of their lifestyle began to take a toll. Becky was not working, yet the household was accumulating significant debt from a new vehicle, expensive furniture, and home appliances. Robbie found himself working exhausting hours, his shifts stretching to 12 hours or more, while quiet doubts about his wife's fidelity began to cloud his mind. He confided in his eldest stepson, Nathan, expressing worry over Becky's habit of constantly deleting her text messages and shielding her phone from his view. On the cold, quiet evening of February 26, 2019, Robbie arrived home at his residence on Oakley Street after completing a grueling 12-hour shift. He pulled his truck into the driveway, the headlights cutting through the darkness. Moments later, a series of sharp, loud Pops shattered the silence of the neighborhood. A neighbor resting in a nearby garage heard 5 distinct gunshots and turned out his lights in fear. Emergency operators received multiple 911 calls from worried residents. Among them was Becky, who reported that she had been inside preparing pork chops and macaroni and cheese when she heard the gunfire. She claimed she ran outside to find Robbie lying on the concrete, bleeding from multiple wounds. When police officers and paramedics arrived, they found a chaotic scene. Robbie still had a faint pulse, and officers immediately began chest compressions in a desperate attempt to save him. Several of Robbie's fellow firefighters rushed to the scene, their disbelief turning to deep grief as they realized the victim was one of their own. Despite all efforts, Robbie was pronounced dead at the scene. He had been executed in his own driveway, shot multiple times at close range. The initial investigation was challenging. The crime scene yielded no spent shell casings, only a single, damaged projectile resting in the street. The lack of physical evidence suggested a professional level of cleanliness, but the autopsy of Robbie's body soon provided a crucial clue. The forensic pathologist recovered a mixture of different types of ammunition, including lead projectiles and plastic shotgun wadding. A ballistics expert identified the likely weapon as a Taurus judge, a specialized hand cannon capable of firing both traditional handgun rounds and shotgun shells from the same cylinder. As investigators built their whiteboards, placing Robbie at the center of a complex network of relationships, they began to look closely at the family circle. They discovered that a Taurus judge had been reported stolen from a nearby pawn shop just prior to the murder. A young employee at that shop, Larry Richmond Jr., had recently sent a photograph of himself with that exact model of firearm. Larry Jr.'s father, Larry Richmond Sr., was currently living with Becky's sister, Mandy, just a short distance from the Dorr residence. Larry Sr. was a convicted felon who had recently completed a 20-year prison sentence for a homicide committed when he was 17 years old. The investigation took a significant turn immediately following Robbie's funeral, a massive ceremony attended by fire departments from across the region. As the final bells rang and the bagpipes faded, detectives quietly took Becky, Mandy, Larry Sr., and Larry Jr. into custody for simultaneous interviews. During her questioning, Becky maintained her original timeline, insisting she was home cooking when she saw Robbie's headlights. However, detectives confronted her with digital records retrieved from her cell phone service provider. The records revealed a 4-minute phone call received by her phone just minutes before Robbie's arrival. This call had been manually deleted from her phone's call history. When pressed, Becky admitted that the call had come from her sister's fiancé, Larry Richmond Sr. She claimed she deleted the record to prevent investigators from suspecting they were having an romantic affair, an allegation she strongly denied. Meanwhile, Larry Richmond Jr. provided investigators with a critical piece of information. He revealed that his father had buried a plastic container filled with firearms in the backyard of Mandy's home. Security footage from a neighboring residents confirmed this, showing Larry Sr. walking behind the garage with a large box and a shovel in the quiet hours of the evening. Officers executed a search warrant at the property, excavating the yard and recovering several firearms, though the specific weapon used in the murder was not among them. The breakthrough in the case came through the meticulous work of the high-tech crime unit. Investigators had seized 2 iPhones from Larry Richmond Sr. upon his arrest on weapons charges, but they lacked the passcodes required to access the encrypted data. For months, a specialized computer system ran complex algorithms to crack the security. After nearly 8 months of quiet processing, the system successfully unlocked the phones. The digital evidence was devastating. Cell tower location data placed Larry Sr.'s phone in the immediate vicinity of Oakley Street in the hour preceding the murder, moving quietly through the alleyways behind the home. At 6:39, his phone was positioned directly behind the door residence. At 6:46, he placed the call to Becky, who confirmed that Robbie was on his way home. Immediately following that call, Larry Sr.'s phone was powered off, remaining dark during the exact window of the execution. It was powered back on at a nearby convenience store at 7:14, where video surveillance showed him dressed in a sleeveless shirt despite the winter cold, seemingly without a care. The investigation painted a clear picture of a conspiracy. Becky, motivated by the desire to escape a failing marriage and secure Robbie's firefighter pension, had provided the critical timeline of his arrival. Larry Sr., utilizing his knowledge of firearms and his past violent history, had waited in the dark to carry out the deed. In late 2020, both Becky Fox Dorr and Larry Richmond Sr. were formally charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Becky's trial was heard first, where her own children testified about her immediate inquiries regarding the pension on the night of the murder. The jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts, and she was sentenced to 90 years in prison. Larry Richmond Sr.'s trial followed, resulting in a similar conviction and a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The quiet resolve of the Evansville Police Department and the strength of Robbie's children had brought an end to a long, painful chapter. At the local fire station, a new engine was dedicated in Robbie's honor, ensuring his legacy of service and protection would continue to ride through the streets of the city. He loved the ghost in the pond. In the rural, rolling farmlands of Huron County, Ohio, the town of Willard stands as a classic railroad community where the steady rumble of freight trains provides a constant backdrop to daily life. It is a place where families stay for generations, and the local county fair is the highlight of the summer. It was here, in the autumn of 2001, that a young mother named Regina Roe Hicks disappeared, leaving behind a mystery that would remain unsolved for over 2 decades. Regina was a vibrant, independent 25-year-old who loved country music riding four-wheelers and spending time with her 4-year-old son, Montana.
She
had recently experienced a significant turning point in her life.
Following a
house fire in the summer of 2001, she and her husband, Paul Hicks, had received a $60,000 insurance settlement. This financial independence gave Regina the courage to file for divorce and begin a new life. She purchased a signature white Chevrolet Camaro, a fast, distinctive car that quickly became well known throughout the small town. On the evening of October 18, 2001, Regina had planned to pick up her son from Paul, drop him off at her mother's home, and spend the night out with her new boyfriend. She never arrived to pick up her child. Her family, knowing she would never willingly abandon Montana, immediately contacted the sheriff's office. 4 days later, a farmer riding an all-terrain vehicle near a secluded farm pond noticed something unusual resting beneath the surface of the muddy water. When local divers and tow trucks arrived, they pulled Regina's white Camaro from
the depths.
Inside, on the passenger side floorboard, they made a grim discovery: Regina's caked, lifeless body. The initial investigation was filled with confusing details. Regina's body was found on the passenger side, with her feet tucked beneath the console. The driver's seat was pushed completely back, a position inconsistent with her small
stature.
The steering wheel was tilted upward, suggesting a much larger person had been driving the car when it plunged into the water. The driver's side window was down, indicating the driver had escaped through the opening as the vehicle sank. The post-mortem examination revealed that Regina had suffered 3 distinct blunt force impacts to her scalp, sufficient to stun or render her unconscious, but not to cause death. The cause of death was determined to be drowning, meaning she was still alive, though unconscious, when the car was driven into the cold pond. Suspicion immediately fell upon Paul Hicks, but he possessed a solid alibi, claiming he was at the home of his close friend, Steve Gates, waiting for Regina to arrive. He suggested to investigators that Regina's disappearance was likely related to illicit drug activity, a claim her family strongly disputed. With no direct physical evidence, no matching DNA, and no confession, the case slowly went cold. Regina's mother, Lausella, spent the remaining years of her life fighting for justice, erecting billboards, and contacting media outlets, but she passed away from illness without ever receiving the answers she sought. Years passed, and Paul Hicks moved to Southern Ohio, where he continued to build a life marked by volatile relationships and financial deceptions. In 2015, Paul purchased an investment home in Goshen, Ohio.
On the
night of June 18, 2015, a massive structure fire consumed the residence. Firefighters arriving at the scene discovered 2 5-gallon gas cans resting on the floorboards inside the burning home. A perfectly preserved digital video recorder recovered from a fireproof safe provided investigators with clear footage of the arsonists. 2 individuals dressed in protective suits were seen pouring gasoline throughout the home. One of them, possessing long, curly blonde hair, looked directly into the surveillance camera. Paul Hicks immediately identified the female arsonist as his ex-girlfriend, Kelly, with whom he was engaged in a bitter custody dispute. He presented police with records showing over 90 harassing phone calls received from her number on the night of the fire, as well as footage of a prior incident where she had allegedly damaged his hot tub. However, a private insurance investigator named Zachary McCune began to notice significant discrepancies. Kelly's actual cell phone records showed she had not placed any calls to Paul that night. Further investigation into spoofing applications revealed that the calls had actually been generated from an Internet Protocol address linked to a phone purchased under a different name but used by Paul himself. The search into Paul's financial records and personal history yielded a stunning discovery. Investigators found that a custom-made latex mask of Kelly's face had been purchased from a specialty website under a false name, along with a blonde wig matching the hair of the arsonist in the video. Paul had engineered an elaborate, theatrical frame-up, setting fire to his own property to defraud the insurance company and destroy his ex-girlfriend's credibility in their custody battle. Although the criminal arson charges were eventually reduced in a plea agreement, Paul was ordered to pay a massive civil judgment to the insurance company. The high-profile nature of the arson case caught the attention of Ashley Ford, a dedicated podcaster specializing in cold cases. Intrigued by the complex deceptions of Paul Hicks, Ashley began to delve into the 23-year-old mystery of Regina's death, interviewing family members and raising public awareness about the roles of those who had stayed silent for so long. The pressure of the podcast and a renewed investigation by the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation finally broke the silence of Steve Gates, Paul's lifelong friend. Under an agreement of immunity, Steve met with special prosecutors and delivered a devastating confession. Steve revealed that on the night of October 18, 2001, Regina had indeed arrived at his property to pick up Montana. An argument erupted between Regina and Paul in the driveway. Steve, wanting to avoid the conflict, went into his garage and turned on a tractor to drown out the noise. When he emerged, he saw Regina's white Camaro parked near the road with the passenger
door open.
Paul was standing beside it, and Regina lay unconscious on the
floorboard.
Paul threatened Steve, asserting that he was now an accessory to the crime. Terrified for his own safety, Steve followed Paul as he drove the Camaro to the secluded farm pond, watching as the car disappeared beneath the dark water.
Paul
then used his phone to place a call to Regina's cell phone, a calculated move to create a digital record suggesting she was still alive and missing after leaving the property. With Steve's detailed testimony and the corroborating evidence of the vehicle's mechanics, Paul Hicks was arrested in April of 2025 and charged with murder and kidnapping. The trial in Huron County was a powerful confrontation with the past. The jury, after deliberating for just under 3 hours, returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. At his sentencing, Paul was ordered to serve life in prison. Though Regina's mother did not live to see the day, her family stood outside the courthouse, finding solace in the long-awaited resolution. Regina's memory was restored, not as a cold case file, but as a beloved mother whose light could no longer be obscured by the deceptions of the man who had sought to control her. The Pass of the Oaks. Along the scenic coastal hills of San Luis Obispo County, California, the town of Paso Robles is celebrated for its rolling vineyards, historic oak trees, and golden valleys. It is a region where the pace of life is gentle and the natural